This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Good evening. Welcome to the Easthampton City Council meeting for Tuesday, June 25th. The meeting tonight is being recorded and broadcast by eMedia on Charter Channel 193 and live streaming on their webpage, easthamptonmedia.org. Councilors that participate in this meeting are gathering hybrid on the order extended until March 2025, which allow us to do so. I remind both the member of the City Council and the public participating remote remain mute until recognized by the City Council President. Also, for the member of the public, please remove your camera for the duration of this meeting unless you are participating in the public speak time or the public hearing. Thank you. This meeting is now called to order. Barbara.
Connie Denham.
Here.
Salem Derby.
Present.
Omar Gomez.
Here.
JP Kaczynski. Tom Peak.
Here.
Brad Riley.
Here.
Tamara Smith.
Here.
JT Terrell.
Here.
And Owen Zaret.
Now is the time for the Pledge of Allegiance, a moment of silence. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approve of the minutes. I will take a motion to approve the minutes of June 5th, 2024.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of June 5th, 2024. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Barbara?
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Tamara Smith.
Aye.
JT Terrell.
Abstain.
Motion passes with one abstained. Public speak time. This is the opportunity to the public to address anything to the council regarding any topic not listed on the public hearing. If you are here in support of anything that is not in the part of the public hearing, now will be the time to speak to the council. If you are here to support a resolution or something different that we have on the agenda, this is the time to participate. I will give you 2 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record and just go to the podium. I'm going to start with the people that are in person first, and then I'm going to the people that are participating remote.
Good evening, Kathy Wazinski, Overlook Drive. I wanted to briefly request that when discussing the redevelopment of the 3 schools, that the City Council not waive the requirement that the Pepin School gym be used for community use. I think that is before the council later, but not part of a public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Ellen. Excuse me. My name is Ellen Coteen. I've had a studio at 1 Cottage Street for 18 years. We were grateful to the City Council for the resolution being put forth this evening. It means a great deal to the community, to the Cottage Street Studios community, but it also means a great deal to the larger artist community in Easthampton and to those who appreciate the arts. I'm not aware of a similar resolution being adopted by another town or city in Massachusetts. The very first thing I want to say is that the staff of Riverside performs heroic work. We have nothing but admiration and support for the critical services provided to those with developmental disabilities. For 40 years, Cottage Street Studios and Riverside Industries have coexisted in harmony and mutual support. The challenge that is facing us as tenants relates to the management of Riverside, not to their programs. I want to address a few statements that have been made by Riverside management. Riverside states that only a small proportion of tenants in the building are experiencing steep rental increases, some of whom are currently paying well below $70 a square foot. I'm sorry, $7 a square foot. The reality is that the vast majority of tenants will see their rents increase by at least 25%, many well over 50%, and some over 100%. Currently, very few tenants pay less than $8 a square foot. Reference is often made to the comprehensive market and building analysis done, which Riverside has used to justify the rent increase to $15 a square foot for all tenants, regardless of the size of their studio or years of tenancy. The buildings used in this analysis are not at all comparable to One Cottage Street. For example, the Silk Mill in Florence was used. It has as many professional medical offices. Interstate Drive in West Springfield houses a subsidiary of Mark Pharmaceuticals. The People's Bank building in Holyoke, the Trinity Health building in Chicopee, etc. The management has said that several tenants are extremely unhappy with the rent increase. The Tenants Association, that was begun to speak in one voice for our efforts to sit down with board members to find a way forward together, has 79 tenants, more than 75% of all tenants. This is not several tenants. The board of directors, its president, or any of its members have never met with the tenants. Reference has been made to a meeting on May 6th with the board president and a tenant who they identified as being the spokesperson for the new Tenants Association. Excuse me. The Tenants Association did not exist at that time, and the tenant attending the meeting was there just to address her concerns about her individual studio. It's also worth noting that Riverside is receiving just under $4 million this year from the State Department of Developmental Disabilities. We were told by the CEO that Riverside pays $6 a square foot for the portion of the building that they use. We really do not want to fight with Riverside. We want to continue to use our studios to create art, to be in community with the other tenants in the building, and to continue to contribute to the well-being of Riverside. Thank you. May I hand you this?
What is his name? Matt. Okay, M-A-T-T.
Marcia Morrison, 24 Winter Street. I'm speaking in support of the resolution by the Easthampton City Council in support of affordable artist workspaces. 20 years ago, when I arrived in the Pioneer Valley, I discovered a place that was not only beautiful and chock full of creative energy, but also one that inspired me to become part of a community organized around the arts. Excuse me. I am proud of my contribution to Easthampton, the City Arts, the Two Bear Fests, Public Art, the Cottage Street Cultural District, and of course, Cultural Chaos. I worked alongside a family of artists, many of whom had studios in One Cottage Street. Friends from other places who have visited and bought art and ate at restaurants and listened to concerts and who made repeat visits ask me what it is that makes Easthampton so special. My answer is simple. Easthampton supports its artists and new entrepreneurs by creating and encouraging a lab environment that gives them the economic freedom to explore, develop, and experiment. The risks are always there, but the community is inspired. The community is inspired by their products and encourages their continued output. Recently, our city was lauded by the press for its mission to provide affordable housing in ongoing future projects. Yes, this is important and a worthy goal. But the house the artist works in also needs to be affordable. Their studios are classrooms, showrooms, workshops, and yes, laboratories. Dear beloved city, please find a way to keep our artists in place and continue, the arts-generated economic environment that has made Easthampton the best in the West.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Becky Demling. I'm a parent of an attendee, my son attends Riverside Programming. I'm also a member of the board. I want you to know how much sympathy I have for the artists in their situation. I understand the inflationary costs are really hard. My concern is about the clients at Riverside. If you've ever been on the first floor where day hab programming is, you'll notice a buckled floor that is not easily traversed in with any type of walker or wheelchair. My son attends with clients who need the physical space maintained. And Riverside, yes, they do get state money, but they also have expensive programs to run. I don't know if you've ever worked with this population. They're an expensive population to staff for because of required ratios and the safety needs of this population. My son has been at Riverside since 2017 and thrived. He has learned so much and grown so much in a building that's pretty run down. And the clients there deserve better. And I understand the artist's concern, but the mission of Riverside is to support the kids like my son who need a safe, healthy building to go to every day. And I want my son to be in a building that meets the needs of not only himself, but the other clients in the building. And subsidizing rents in any way, shape, or form is not part of the Riverside mission. The mission is all around these most vulnerable kids in our population. And I would like you to consider the clients that many of whom do not have either the physical or the verbal capabilities to speak at this meeting and speak for themselves. So thank you for considering them.
That's really hard for me to follow. I'm one of the tenants at Cottage Street. I'm a bookbinder, workshop instructor, and a small business owner. I've been at Cottage Street for the past 6 years. I started there with 3 other studio mates. This March, I made the step to expand my business and ask her to leave. I did that. It was scary. It's the first time I've expanded my business. But I did it, and I planned for my rent to go up 5%, which is 2% more than it always has in my 6 years. That is what I thought the high end of rent going up would be, but my rent will be going up 36% in September. And the doors are now locked 24/7, so I can't have my workshops run smoothly, and suddenly everything is different. So it was an absolute shock to me, to say the least. I've got 775 square feet. I've got like 3,000 pounds of equipment and materials, and that's just not easy to move. I can't just pick up and go somewhere else and start again. And what I need everyone to realize in this room, which most of them are on my side, but it's not just 80 artists and tenants that are being affected. This is 80 small businesses right in the center of downtown Easthampton. I've personally employed 2 people in my business. I've been employed by 5 different artists in that building. I'm currently still working with one, so my entire livelihood is right in that building. I think that these businesses need stability, they need honesty, and they need fair prices. Potentially losing 80 small businesses in the center of downtown Easthampton at the heart of the cultural district, which is what made it the cultural district, will be devastating for the community of Easthampton.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tracy Eller. I am an artist, a resident, and I am the chair of Easthampton City Arts. I am here at this meeting because I believe that the artists in this town are a vital force. We are good for the economic development. I believe the economic development is tied directly to the artists in this community. The strength of the artists. I mean, Cultural Chaos is just one example. We have open studios, we have Art Walk, we have City Space, Luthiers, and Marigold. We have all kinds of arts that are bringing thousands of people into our community. Also, in 2019, ECA hosted the Easthampton Futures Project, which was an initiative to find out what the residents of the cities were wanting. And one of the biggest things that came out of that initiative was affordable housing, affordable workspaces for artists, and having the artists community thrive. I believe that this initiative should be passed. I believe that we should put measures in place to keep the artists in this community, because it would be a real shame to have our artists leave, because it would be it would devastate our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alice Levine. I live at 79 Plain Street. I am here neither as an artist nor as anyone who has any direct connection to Riverside, but just as a community member. My partner and I moved here 7 years ago, partly because it was somewhat, although not completely, more affordable than some other communities in the area. And I am very invested in seeing this remain an affordable community, both for housing, especially for renters, and also for artists and small businesses that need to rent space in order to survive and create. When we first moved here, what became a joke in our family was every single person we met in the valley when we said we were moving to Easthampton said, "Oh, that's such an up-and-coming place." So it became the joke of our family. But now it doesn't feel like a joke, because now it feels like maybe up-and-coming is just going to keep going up and leaving more and more people out. I was really impressed that the tenants, I've been part of various negotiations in unions and things like that, and the tenants here are being so reasonable and saying, we just want a meeting, we just want an opportunity to continue the collaborative relationship we've had for all these years. And the idea that that collaborative relationship is now dying due to how Riverside sees its own interests is very upsetting. One thing I did as a community member is I looked on the Easthampton website, and I wanted to see what kind of planning goals were in place. And I found that there were a number of goals around affordability and support of the arts right in the goals and objectives from 2019 to 2024, and the priority projects that the city has been working on. I'll just name 4 of them. The continued affordability of commercial space, and so I think people here have talked about artists' studios as their small businesses. Continued assistance to artists, maybe you all know what this means, I don't, including maker collective workspaces. Marketing and supporting Easthampton's Cottage Street Cultural District, and supporting an increase in public art and art education.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name's Evan Plotkin, and I'm an artist, so you don't have to sit down. I am also an art advocate. I'm a commercial real estate. I own a commercial real estate business in Springfield, and if anybody knows anything about me, they know that I've been sort of on the forefront of bringing arts and the Renaissance back to Springfield, and I've been doing that for the last 40 years. I produced the Jazz Festival, I'm responsible for most of the murals downtown. I provide art spaces for artists, and so I have an appreciation for the people who are standing up in this room right now for the tenants. I'm also going to be engaged as the property manager for the property. And it is my goal, along with collectively, we are going to look at how the building is running, where there are efficiencies. We're going to work with the tenant population here and try to manage the property in the most efficient way possible. And we'll be advisors to the ownership of the property so that we can, maybe find ways that there can be a win-win for everybody. We really believe I believe, and I know that Lynn believes that there's a that the artist community here is powerful. It is important, and it will not be ignored as far as I'm concerned. And I'm going to listen and hopefully see what we can do as stewards of the property as we're going forward as a property management company to guide the ownership to reach their goals and to provide for affordable studio commercial space for the occupants. So that's our goal, and I'm going to, they'll be getting communications very soon relative to our management, what we're going to be doing to help, have the chain of communications, lines of communications open to everybody so that so everyone can be heard, and so that we can kind of build, a new way together.
Thank you.
Yep.
I just want to stop public speak time for the moment. I'm going to reopen public speak time again after the public hearing. The reason we're going to do public hearing now is because we scheduled it for 6:15, and some of the city employees, the experts, are here, and we don't want them to stay here over time, so that way we can save you some money. And another one, they have a commitment at 7. So we're going to open the public hearing now, and after the public hearing, I will open the public speak time for those ones that do want to say something and didn't say anything yet. You're going to have an opportunity to talk to the council.
Can I ask a question? I'm not going to be able to stay until that because, unfortunately, as other people have said, I have to be able to go support the door being open for be able to have a class there tonight. So if there's any possibility to speak before 6:45, which is all possible, then if I could speak now, that would be it.
I'll give you a minute. I will give you just a minute.
Okay.
If you can do it, can you do it in a minute?
I will try to do it in a minute.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Let's do it.
My name is Marin Goldstein, and 16 John Street is where I live. I first want to congratulate Barbara as Clerk of the Year, so congratulations to you, well-deserved honor. So my name is Marin Goldstein. I'm the president of Heron's Bridge. We're a nonprofit martial arts community group in Riverside. We've been there since 1984, and we were formerly known as the Women's Valley Martial Arts. We teach a variety of martial arts and community building groups, including Power Girls. We offer a sliding scale for all of our classes in order that our doors can be open for every participant. And so suddenly being asked to be able to afford on a few months' notice a sudden, I think it's roughly 66% increase in our rent is not really affordable for our nonprofit organization. Like I said, we've been there over 40 years. I really want to thank the council members and the mayor for considering this artist support resolution. I think that one of the, oh my goodness, that's so fast. The last thing I just want to say then is just that we have been trying to negotiate to bring up this opportunity to have a conversation, and we just keep being stonewalled and told that $15 is the minimum that they're even going to be offering to any of us. And again, regardless of the space, regardless of the conditions. What I ask beyond just a resolution is that hopefully somebody from the city council can get involved and really encourage us to be able to have negotiations so that we can find a means to stay in this and keep the vibrant community in One Cottage Street. Thank you very much.
Again, I will open the public speak time again after the public hearing. I will take a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara?
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Tamara Smith. Aye. JT Terrell.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Motion passes. The first item that we have is a transfer. Councilor Peak.
Thank you, Mr. President. All of us have been around long enough at this point to know the drill on this one, but for the benefit of the public, the city receives payment quarterly from Spectrum, formerly Charter, that is then passed along to Easthampton Media to cover forms a large part of their budget. There just has to be that, we're the ones who receive it, we need to pass it along. Mm-hmm. So we do this once a quarter. There's not really much else to it.
Any councilors have any questions or comments? Anyone from the public have any questions or comments about this transfer? Anyone participating remote have any questions or comments about this transfer? Seeing none, Councilor Peak.
All right, I'll make this request in the form of a motion. I should just say before I do that all three of these items were voted on 3-0 by the Finance Committee. Request is hereby made for approval of the following appropriation. Amount requested $48,719.95 to be transferred from the PEG access account to be transferred to the PEG access account. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: to give approval to spend from the PEG Access Receipts Reserved account for cable-related purposes consistent with the franchise agreement.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the transfer of $48,719.95 to the PEC Access account for the cable-related purpose. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara?
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Tamara Smith.
Aye.
JT Terrell.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Motion passes. Councilor Peak.
All right, the next item we have is a $25,000 appropriation from free cash to legal. There are some ongoing union negotiations that have cost some money, and I think all of you know at this point that legal is a notoriously difficult item to budget for, because exactly what is needed, can change very dramatically. So with that coming up, there's some fees that we need to pay that we haven't received the bills for, but this, the mayor and her finance team estimate will cover us for the remainder of this fiscal year until the new budget takes effect.
Any councilor have any questions or comments about these appropriations? Seeing none, anyone from the public have any questions or comments about this appropriation? Anyone participating remote? Seeing none, Councilor Peak.
All right, I'll make this request in the form of a motion. Request is hereby made for approval of the following appropriation. Amount requested, $25,000 to be transferred from free cash, $25,000 to be transferred to legal, $25,000. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: legal costs billed for FY24. Since the last appropriation, we have incurred $15,000 in union negotiation fees and have yet to receive bills for March through June.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the supplemental appropriation of $25,000 from free cash for fiscal year 2024 legal cost. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara?
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Tamara Smith.
Aye.
JT Terrell.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye. Motion passes. Councilor Peak.
Thank you, Mr. President. The final appropriation for the night is $1,300,000 appropriation from free cash to the general and capital stabilization funds. So free cash is basically the surplus, just for the benefit of the large number of people who are here. Free cash is the surplus that we receive once we have looked at last fiscal year, what we spent and what we brought in. If we don't spend our free cash by the end of the fiscal year, it gets rolled over and we can't touch it until it gets certified as free cash again sometime in the fall. And so the stabilization accounts are colloquially what you could call rainy day accounts. They're things that we can spend out of at any time that we need to. It just requires a vote of I think 2/3 of the city council. So the idea is to move this money into here so that it's surplus money and we could then access it at any time rather than having to wait for certification again. And it also helps to make up some of the difference of there is some money that came out of stabilization to help with just some speed bumps that came with this year's fiscal cycle. And so this helps make up some of that and put us in a stronger position. So that's about it.
That's good. Any councilor have any questions or comments? Anyone from the public have any questions or comments about this appropriation? Could you please go to the podium? You have state your name and address for the record. and make the question or comment.
Since this is surplus, would it be
Can you
possible?
please, your name and address?
Marcia Morrison, 24 Winter Street. Thank you. Since this is surplus, would it be possible to use it for scholarships to artists?
Councilor Peak?
It could be used for anything that the mayor chooses to, use it on subject to Mass General Law, but we don't actually have the ability to steer that. We can just approve these transfers or block them. So this fiscal year is ending in a few days, and so I think the idea is to move this into here, and then at this point it can be used for whatever we want, or we can just hold on to it for a rainy day. It has been quite a few years since the U.S. has gone into recession, so it's something that, that does happen from time to time. So there's any number, it could be used for pretty much anything, with the one thing that some of it's going to capital stabilization. So that money would specifically be used for capital projects. So infrastructure, but then that frees up money that might have been used for free cash. It's complicated, but in short, if that was what the mayor wanted to do, then yes, these dollars could end up in something like that at some point, potentially.
And I will add, basically that money, we can use it for city business, for the city, government city business. Any other questions? Please go to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Jana Ugoni. I'm a tenant at 1 Cottage Street. I do have a question about what you're discussing. I'm naive about how it all works, but how does that compare with the CPA loan, this money? You mentioned something about how it could be distributed in different ways. Can it be used in Riverside Building for help with repairs?
Councilor Peak?
I think there's some questions there that I would need to check with some people. I mean, in theory, there are things that could potentially happen with that sort of thing. But again, it wouldn't be our call or our ability to make that decision. That would have to come from the mayor and the executive branch.
Sure.
But and depending on the exact use, the various legal things that I may or may not even be aware of might apply. But yes, we have spent money on various sort of public-private partnerships, and it's conceivable that something like that could potentially happen, but it isn't something that we would have any control over. And to the point of this particular thing, I think it's really important that the money tonight go into stabilization, and then what happens to that money, whether it's used in 2 weeks or 10 years, we are able to use it, whereas if we don't do anything with it tonight, it will go to free cash, and it will then be months before we're even able to access the money for any sort of project that anyone could ever conceive of.
Sure.
And I want to add something else too, is one thing is the capital stabilization funds, and something different is CPA money. The money that we're moving today from free cash to this account can be only used to city business related to the government, right?
I see.
The CPA, we can use it for different stuff if we have the money. So and we are not moving money to CPA. This is not what we're doing tonight.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone participating remote? Seeing none, Councilor Peak.
All right. I'll make this request in the form of a motion. Request is hereby made for approval of the following appropriation. Amount requested, $1,300,000 to be transferred from free cash, $1,300,000 to be transferred to general stabilization, $550,000, capital stabilization, $750,000. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: to fund general stabilization, to provide stability to the current environment, to fund capital stabilization, to meet capital needs.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the supplemental appropriation of $1,300,000 from free cash to general and capital stabilization funds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara?
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Tamara Smith.
Aye.
JT Terrell.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez. Tom Peak.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Councilor Peak. City Ordinance Amendment. This is Councilor Denham.
Thank you, Mr. President. So before us this evening, we have the Ordinance Committee worked on with our conservation agent, Cassie Traggart, the purchase of fuel-efficient vehicles for municipal use, which was presented to us from Councilor Zaret. And essentially it amended some language within there, is also established vehicle procurement prioritization to include the following: zero emission vehicles, plug-in hybrid vehicles, hybrid electric vehicles, or other alternative fuel vehicles, as well as standard vehicles operated by an internal combustion engine fueled by fossil fuels. So the goal, given the fact that we live in an environment that is continually being challenged by climate change, the responsibility of the city to take action in the purchase of vehicles to attempt to minimize our carbon footprint. And what this change in policy does is it prioritizes the zero emission vehicles, and this may include electric vehicles, but also it's very forward thinking in terms of preparing for vehicles that may not be road ready, so to speak, and that might include hydrogen powered vehicles. And so we really tried to think forward thinking, so we don't have to continue to come back to this particular policy each time there's a new innovation or technology changes. And so we tried to be mindful of that. It is important to note that this policy shall not require a department to take any action which conflicts with local, state, or federal requirements, nor mandate the procurement of products that do not perform adequately for their intended use, exclude adequate purchasing competition, or require the purchase of vehicles that are not commercially available or practicable. So this really is, if we're looking at fire trucks or things of that nature, those types of vehicles perhaps aren't electric or all electric. And so this would not force any department to purchase vehicles that do not meet its specific needs. And so one of the things that's very important also about this particular policy is that it helps the city it's one step closer to achieving a climate leader designation. And at this time, President Gomez, with your permission, I think it would be useful to have our conservation agent, Cassie Traggart, to speak not only about this particular policy that she helped to amend and make edits to, but also to talk about the climate leader designation, so that other councilors have a clear understanding of not only the positive impact this has for the city, but also the positive impact that this passage of this policy allows in terms of getting grants for the city.
Yeah, Cassie's here. Cassie?
This is just a copy of my presentation. Bear with me a moment. I just want to get myself set up here for my presentation. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see the presentation. All right. So yes, thank you, Councilor Denham, for the introduction. My name is Cassie Traggart. I am the conservation agent for the City of Easthampton. I work in the planning department here in City Hall. Thank you to the council for giving me this opportunity to share my perspective for how approving this policy and also the specialized code that we'll talk about in the next item will help us achieve our climate goals in relation to the Climate Action Plan and the potential to gaining this climate leader designation. So first I want to talk about the Climate Action Plan. The climate action plan is something that is being pursued in response to the climate emergency resolution passed by the City Council in 2021. That was a really critical thing that the City Council did to show that, kind of giving a mandate to the city staff and to show to the community that climate change is a very it's a huge problem. It is an emergency right now that we need to address. Creating this climate action plan gives us a way and it guides us to address that. And so I mention that also because I would request that the council try to look at these measures, both the zero emission vehicle policy and the specialized code, through that lens of an active climate emergency that has been recognized in the past. So the plan itself will lay out actions that the city government can take to reach a net zero carbon emitting city by 2050. The actions are grouped into things that the city can do for municipal operations, to support residents to make green changes, to support businesses to make green changes, and then lastly, actions to collaborate regionally to drive a larger scope of change towards addressing climate change. The plan itself has gone through many public and departmental iterations. It's got a lot of outreach to those groups to help craft it, so it's taken a holistic approach to get to where it is today. It should be completed by early July. And it will align us with state goals for climate response, which will help us be more competitive for grants and grant opportunities to help us complete those actions. So one of the big sources, a new source of grants for completing these actions that are outlined in the plan is a climate leader community designation. So this is something that's been created by the Department of Energy Resources, DOER, and it's basically a level up from being a green community. We are a green community. We've been a green community since 2010. This is helping us kind of reach the next level, as it were. What being a green community does for us is that it allows us to go for grants that help improve municipal operations in terms of their energy efficiency. But the limitation currently is that it's only for municipal buildings and municipal operations. What becoming a climate leader community would do is allow us to go for a much broader scope of grant opportunities that would help us pursue the actions related to supporting the public to make these green changes, and businesses, and more regional efforts. So if we want to be able to pursue all the actions in the plan, this is going to be a critical tool to help us fund doing that. I have in here that the application is due July 25th to get that designation. I've actually just been informed by DOER that they've expanded that, but I'll explain with more detail later why I still think it's important for us to approve these policies, these amendments now, to kind of be the most competitive we can be. So what are the criteria to become a climate leader community? They're all listed here. The first one is to be a green community in good standing. We have been since 2010, no problem. The next is to establish a local energy committee. We already have that. It's the Energy Advisory Committee, and we're really lucky. It's a really dedicated group of people who've been doing good work. The next would be to issue a formal decarbonization commitment. That's going to be satisfied by the Climate Action Plan that'll be completed this July, early this July. The next is to create a decarbonization roadmap for 2050. That's related to municipal buildings only. That's going to be included in the Climate Action Plan. So that's going to be completed imminently. So the last two pieces, the only other two pieces that we need are the adoption of this zero emission vehicle policy and the adoption of the specialized code. So I'm going to talk about the zero emission policy now, but I'll be back to talk about the code. Oh, but first I should explain how these two things are coming together. Like I said, the actions that are identified in the Climate Action Plan, we will get access to grants by being a climate leader community to help make those actions happen. I urge the commission the council to give us the ability to make these two last pieces something that we have so we can get this designation at this moment, because we've gathered a lot of momentum through the Climate Action Plan development. We've been able to gather a list of residents who are interested and invested in seeing how this unfolds and likely helping with these, more public-facing elements in the future, and we've kind of set the tone. We've been working with certain departments. There's a lot of momentum to kind of keep this going. So if we can get this climate leader designation as soon as possible, then we can really hit the ground running once the plan is done and start pursuing and executing those actions as soon as possible. The other element is that I've been the main staff person kind of driving this and working on these projects, but I will no longer be with the city starting August 1st. So even though we have a longer deadline than I knew before to get this designation, I would encourage us to make it so that I can still apply for the designation before I leave. And then a last piece, it would also support existing projects that we have going on, which are listed there, but also would help support funding potentially for a sustainability coordinator position so that there could be a new position to execute the climate action plan after I leave. Which I think is a really critical component of the plan being successful. Okay, so the zero emission vehicle policy. So like I said, I would ask this to be adopted today because it satisfies one of the last two criteria we need to become a climate leader community. It improves upon the existing fuel efficient policy that we already have because we're a green community. So that policy just says that we need to buy the most fuel efficient vehicle possible. This establishes a more clear hierarchy of how we should make that consideration. And so Connie explained this pretty well already, but just to reiterate, if we say a department head needs to buy a certain vehicle. They know what it needs to be able to do, and they know what their budget is for it. This asks, when they try to choose a vehicle, can they choose an electric vehicle that can do that? If you can't, okay, can you choose a plug-in hybrid that can achieve that? No? What about a gas hybrid? No? Okay, what's the most fuel-efficient combustion engine you can find there? So it really just lays out a clear process for that, but it's not a huge change from what we've already been doing, in my opinion. And then, yeah, just to reiterate again, because I think it's really important to know that it doesn't require any compromise for performance, safety standards, or cost for these departments when they're considering vehicles, and that's the explicit language that's included in the policy. And so, yeah, I would ask that the council consider to pass this amendment, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councilor Denham?
Yeah, so I think at this time, it would be, I'd like to, with your permission, President Gomez, open it up to council members if they have any questions, since Cassie is here also now to be able to answer those questions.
Any councilor have any questions or concerns, comments? Councilor Riley?
And this is just a quick comment to say thank you for all of the work that you do on behalf of the city. You know, the things that you specialize in are the kinds of policy areas that I'm not always the most familiar with. So, you know, when you come to meetings and you give presentations like this, like you have in the past, it just really helps me understand the totality of what we're talking about. So I don't have any questions because of the presentation. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. I'm just glad I can do that.
Councilor Derby?
So, thanks. I know one of the things we had talked about in committee was including a piece for not necessarily electric, but emerging technologies. I just wanted to make sure that we made that in there, because when you went through your hierarchy, maybe I missed it.
Oh, yeah. No, sorry. I just mentioned electric vehicles as the top choice for the example, but yes, that is in there. I think that it is important that we had the language crafted to prioritize zero emission vehicles, not just electric vehicles, because there could be new technology that comes out, such as hydrogen powered, or I don't even know what, that we want to be able to be included. If it doesn't result in any fossil fuel emissions, that should be applicable and a good option for departments to choose from. Yeah.
Any other councilor? Councilor Smith?
First, Cassie, I just wanted to say we'll miss you as part of the city, and I really appreciated being part of ordinance. You really broke down a lot of the language that was really difficult from the state regarding these, and to the other counselors, that piece with the green, the yellow, and the red bullets to it was really helpful, and it really helped me understand why I would be going for these different designations and what was at stake. And so when we look at how many grants we would be able to be to be eligible for as a city, I thought that was a really important part of this process. And so because of that, and because of the history of our city being able to really diligently write grants and see results, that really helped me making a decision about this as part of the committee. So I wanted to bring that forth to the other counselors as well, that was really helpful. And this is very difficult to understand. So we really went through many iterations of just having to be like, can you explain this to us again? So that's certainly part of the process. And my questions were really answered, and I appreciated it. Okay.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other Councilor? Councilor Denham, do you want to add something else before we go to the public, or?
Yeah, so just one final thought. One thing that we had discussed also was just a review of this would take place, and this was part of making sure that it discussed zero emission, was so that we don't have to review this each and every time a technology comes, but this would just fall under the typical review of ordinances. And so I think that that's something that was discussed also. And we had voted 3-0 to support this. So just want to make that known. And if you'd like, I can read the motion.
Not yet. Let me open to the public first.
Okay, yep.
Anyone?
When you're ready.
Anyone from the public have any questions or comments about these changes on this ordinance? Anyone participating remote? I see Julie.
Hi, Julie from Precinct 1. I really am hoping that you approve this resolution because I think it's really important. When our police department went to the 2 EV vehicles, the 2 electric vehicles, I was very in support of that due to trying to go green. And I hope that you guys will decide to go ahead and move forward with this. I think it's so important for our future, for our children and their children. And we can, as I said before in the past, we can only go up from where we're at. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen, and I do hope you approve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Anyone else? Seeing none, Councilor Denham.
I move to amend Chapter 2, Administration, by replacing the existing Section 2-6, Purchase of Fuel-Efficient Vehicles for Municipal Use, with a new Section 2-6, Purchase of Fuel-Efficient Vehicles for Municipal Use, as presented to the City Council for its meeting on June 25th, 2024.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to the City Ordinance Amendment to amend Chapter 2, Section 2-6. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara?
Tamara Smith?
Aye.
JT Terrell?
Aye.
Connie Denham?
Aye.
Salem Derby?
Aye.
Omar Gomez?
Aye.
Tom Peak? Brad Riley?
Aye.
Motion passes. Councilor Denham.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. President. And the second thing that we have, the Ordinance Committee is bringing to Council today is the opt-in specialized code, which is an addition to the I'm forgetting it. The stretch code. And I'm not going to go too much into this because I'm going to turn it over to our conservation agent, Cassie Traggart, again, to discuss this. This was a particularly, and I think it was hinted at by Councilor Smith, this was a particularly confusing discussion around kind of the stretch code and the specialized opt-in code, but essentially the specialized opt-in code would present some requirements for building additions and new structures that would make buildings more energy efficient, but Conservation Agent Traeger actually has a presentation that will walk us through what the distinctions are from that, which I think would actually be a better visual representation of kind of the discussion, so that we can kind of move forward in that discussion. So with your permission, President Gomez, I think it would be helpful to have Cassie provide that presentation.
Cassie?
Hello again. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again, if you can bear with me.
And also, Mr. President, if I could.
Yeah, Consul Denham.
Yep, so we also have Chris Mason from the DOER, who's also present in the meeting, who will be able to provide some insight regarding the opt-in specialized code as well, just so you are aware.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Connie. And thank you again for allowing me to share my perspective once again. So this is again related to, now we just passed the ZEV policy, so the last piece that we need to be able to be eligible for the climate leader designation is passing, adopting the specialized code. And so, let's see here. Many people aren't familiar with the building codes. So I wanted to give a quick overview of what is out there before we get started, and then dive into more detail as we go. So I do ask that you hold your questions to the end, even though that's what we've been doing anyways, but just hopefully it'll make sense if I can give it all in one go. So first of all, there are 3 building codes related to energy efficiency for buildings that are available to all towns. And the lowest level is the base code. We have that adopted, that's the minimum standard. The next level up is the stretch code, which we have adopted. We've had it adopted for many years because it is a requirement to be a green community. That will remain the case whether or not we choose to adopt the specialized code or not. So sometimes there's confusion between the two because they both start with S and it's hard. But that stretch code is, it's subject to changes. It's actually going to be updated this July. That's going to happen either way. What's being asked today is to adopt this specialized code. Oh, hold on. I'm in the wrong. There we go. So first, just the key points about the specialized code. So again, it's not the stretch code. We've had the stretch code. You'll see how they differ here in coming slides, but just keep that in your mind. We're doing the specialized code only tonight. Stretch code exists and will exist either way. Big overarching questions that we experienced thus far is bringing clarification that it will not apply to additions, alterations, renovations, or existing structures. This only applies to new building construction. And I'll explain more how it applies to each kind, but it's only for new construction. It does not require all electric homes. So for those new construction, there is a way to have them be not all electric, but there are standards you need to meet if that's the path you're going to go. It does not reduce or disincentivize affordable housing, which is a legitimate concern. But the reason is because affordable housing projects, in order to get the funding and the approvals that they need from the state, they already are going to be developing to the standard of the specialized code. And so affordable housing will still be reaching the specialized code standards whether or not it's passed. And so this should not disincentivize affordable housing nor be a barrier to it. But what I will say is that it could result in increased costs to new buildings that are privately developed and not going for those that affordable standard because they'll be needing to reach a more energy efficient standard. But I would highlight that they will be less expensive to live in for those who are occupying those spaces because they'll be more energy efficient. They should be able to expect lower energy bills. And so that's something I want to highlight and be able to go for the incentives from the state from mass saves. Okay, so now we're getting into the details. Oh, no, sorry. This is something I wanted to add in here. So this is an infographic from DOER that kind of just corroborates these claims I just made. And And one of the ones that we talked about at the ordinance subcommittee and maybe was a potential source of confusion was, does the opt-in specialized code apply to existing structures? No. Improvements to existing structures depending on size are regulated by the updated stretch code and the base code. That depending on size qualifier, there was concern that that meant that if it was above or below a certain size, yes, it would impact existing structures. That is not the case. What it's saying there is that depending on the size, it operates under the stretch code or the base code. So it does not impact existing structures, alterations, renovations. It's only for new construction. Will the specialized code discourage affordable housing? No. For the same reasons, it will encourage affordable housing through other incentives through the state. They're already going to be meeting this standard, whether or not we pass the specialized code. Is it possible to install a gas cooktop in a home under this standard in a new home? Yes, it is. You just need to pre-wire for it to be switched to electric. We'll get into details about that. But yes, there's a mixed fuel pathway is how they're describing it, or any other type of appliance or fossil fuel sourced energy source in the house. You will be able to do that. Why should we adopt the code, the specialized code? They highlight that the number one reason is the pre-wiring requisite. That will make it easier for folks to electrify in the future, should they want to do that, which is much easier and less expensive to do when they're building the home than after it's built. So that is a benefit to future owners and residents. But again, I would highlight that it will satisfy the last criteria to become a climate leader community, and thus will make us able to get more grants to execute the climate action plan. And then why does the opt-ins code permit fossil fuel usage? Why can they do gas cooktops and the mixed fuel pathways? To preserve market choice, which I think is good to have a little more flexibility built into it. Okay, so now we're going to get into details. So there's basically two categories. This one has two sub-pieces. Looking at this infographic. These charts were made available by DOER. They come from them. The information on the left in the lighter boxes is kind of describing the building you're trying to build. The dark blue boxes is what exists. That's what's required under the stretch code. That will be the case and what they need to meet, regardless of whether or not you choose to adopt the specialized code. It's only these green boxes is what will be required, what I'm asking to have be required and been adopted today. For residential structures, new residential structures, they divide it into single-family homes and multifamily developments. So zooming in again, within those two subcategories, these are the only two types of homes that will experience a change through adding the code. So if you can build an all-electric, if you're building a new home and you can make it all electric, no matter what size, you just need to meet the stretch code. That's already the case. It will be not impacted by us passing the specialized code tonight. If you are making an addition or an alteration of any size, or it's an existing home, there's exemptions if it's historic, but also it wouldn't affect either of them. Existing standards apply. But if you want to try to build a new home that is requiring mixed fuel, you will be impacted by this. And then it divides it into, depending on the size of the home, what the criteria is. But of any size, you need to pre-wire the home for electrification in the future. So like I said, if you want to install a gas stove, you can do that, but you need to pre-wire it so that someone could swap it for a gas stove. And that applies for all the different appliances in the home. If you make all the appliances non-electric, you have to pre-wire all of them to be electric. But if you only have that one, then you just have to pre-wire that one. For homes that are of a certain size, if you're under 4,000 square feet, you also need to add solar, but it has to be a minimum of 4 kilowatts. If you're over 4,000 square feet for this new home, you need to have enough solar to achieve net zero. What's important to note, though, is that solar is only required if it's physically possible because of the trees surrounding the area. No one will be required to remove trees to make solar possible. So you would be exempt from the solar requirement if it's not physically possible because where you built the home is surrounded by trees. That is a really important distinction. But if you can have solar, you're going to have solar. The next category is residential multifamilies. So this would only apply if those multifamily developments, these new multifamily buildings, are 4 stories or greater and over 12,000 square feet. So there may be housing developments that are below those standards and would not be impacted by this. But if they meet that size threshold, even if they're all electric or mixed fuel, they're going to be impacted. In the past, if it was all electric, if they met just the stretch code, they wouldn't have to do anything. But what this will change is that they have to be passive house. Any multifamily development that meets that size threshold will have to meet the passive house standards. What we're talking about there is a weatherization general home efficiency standard. So that's like they have to build it tight enough and insulated enough to meet this efficiency standard. And then for mixed fuel homes, if they're not all electric, they have to be passive house, and they also have to pre-wire, like for the other structures. So that's for the residential section. Last one, commercial. So this is the last category. It's important to note that commercial structures for DOER includes municipal buildings and schools. But again, what would change by getting the specialized code? This chart works the same way. The light colored boxes on the left describes the type of structure. The dark blue boxes describes the current code, the stretch code, what is in place either way. The green boxes is what would change. So now I'm highlighting it. The only ones that would be affected are mixed fuel buildings, non-all-electric buildings. So if the city wanted to build a new city hall and we couldn't make it all electric, we would have to build it such that we pre-wire for electric for those parts that aren't all electric. And then we can either meet this TEDI rating and add solar, or we can achieve passive house. TEDI is another type of building ceiling, building efficiency, tightness for a building insulation. So for mixed fuel, pre-wire, and passive house, or the other one plus solar. For all other commercial structures that are over 20,000 square feet, so if you're under 20,000 square feet, this does not affect you. But if you are building a structure that needs mixed fuel, if you can't achieve all electric, then you need to either achieve passive house and pre-wire. Either way, you got to pre-wire it. And you can either achieve passive house or achieve ASHRAE/TEDI and add solar. ASHRAE and TEDI, again, just another standard for weatherization and building efficiency. And so the theme really across the whole board is this pre-wiring if you can't get all electric, and then trying to have extra sources to provide energy for the home through the solar if you meet those certain standards. Okay, so I don't need to go through all of these again, but just quickly, it's not the same as the stretch code. Stretch code is in place. Dark blue boxes happen either way. It will not apply to existing structures, additions, alterations, or renovations, no matter the size or scope. You could totally gut an existing building, would not apply. If it's just the bare bones, you still wouldn't have to apply to be compliant with the specialized code. It doesn't require all electric homes. There are other pathways for mixed fuels homes, but you will have to pre-wire and sometimes add solar. It does not reduce or incentivize affordable housing. But there may be costs for private developments that meet their certain size thresholds that cannot be all electric. But they will likely be cheaper to live in for those tenants and the folks who would be using those homes and buildings. And so I would just ask the council to, again, reiterate that passing this, not only is it good for helping us get that climate leader designation and being able to go for that while I'm still here, not only will that then help us execute the climate action plan, it is a critical piece to address the climate emergency that the resolution was passed on. This will help make sure that these future buildings are going in this direction that will help us do what we need to do to address this climate emergency. So thank you, and now we can open to questions, and I thank Chris Mason for being here as well, our regional coordinator. So yeah, thank you. I know that was long, so.
Thank you, Cassie. That was a great presentation. Just 1 second. Any councilors? Councilor Peak.
Hi, Cassie. We're going to miss you a lot. I was just wondering, at the beginning of your initial presentation, so I probably should have asked this then, we were talking about this climate leader designation and all the various grants that it would open up to. This might be a difficult question, so if you don't know, that's fine, but like how much, if we don't act tonight, like how much money are we leaving, or like what kind of money are we leaving on the table? Like what sort of grants are we talking about in terms of like, like what are, sorry, I guess that kind of, yeah.
I know what you mean. So it's a good question, and Chris Mason may be able to speak to this more directly, but the real thing is that we don't actually know. They haven't laid out what all the grants are that are going to be available are. But we do know that this will be the major tool to go for those grants, and we do know that the scope of those grants will include the things that are in the climate action plan that simply being a green community does not include. Exact numbers I couldn't say, and it likely will change over time as the city likely increases incentives based off of how the direction it's been trending already. And so, yeah, we don't have all the specific answers to that yet, unless anything new has come out from Chris, but that is the piece. I think that one of the things that was highlighted in the materials that are out already is the funding potentially for a sustainability coordinator position. And that, I think, even if that was the only thing, would be huge for us to be able to do. Because, like I said, having a staff person dedicated to making the climate action plan happen is critical to its success.
Any other council? Councilor Riley?
Chris,
yes, let me do
sorry.
Councilor Riley, and then I will take Chris.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So this may be a question for you. It also may be a question for Councilor Denham to answer. I was thinking as I was listening to your presentation about how to best facilitate the onboarding process for oversight and how this works. So let's use the example of tree cover for a new home being constructed, and they cannot reach net zero because of the tree canopy and the shade. Is this a oversight that belongs to the Zoning Board of Appeals to grant waivers? Who is the body that takes these situations up?
In terms of waivers, I'm not sure. It would be the building department and the building commissioner who would be enforcing the code. Just like they do now, that's who enforces the stretch code and the base code. Okay. So the waiver process, I'm not sure what that would be, but it may just be at the discretion of the building commissioner to be like, yep, this meets these criteria, but I'm not sure. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going with Christopher now, but I'm going to ask one more time. Can you please mute your cell phones? Thank you. Christopher?
Hello. Thank you for having me. Chris Mason, Western Mass Regional Coordinator of the Green Communities Program. Let's see. Questions before me are what kind of grants are going to be coming out? Right now, Easthampton takes advantage of competitive grants from being a green community, the Green Communities Competitive Grant Application. And as a green community, those grants are limited to a certain amount. For instance, you can't put PV on a municipal building. You can't support PV on a municipal building with those grants. We've never allowed that. If you became a climate leader community, then we would broaden the areas that you could use that grant money for. For instance, you could possibly, at that point, you could be putting money towards a PV array on a building, on a municipal building. And it'll be broader than that in other ways as well. One of the things that Cassie hasn't mentioned for the climate leaders community is that every 3 years you need to be recertified. And part of that is showing that you've done some kind of activity for the greater community, not just municipal operations, but kind of outward facing. And I won't go into the details on that, but that's the other kind of thing that this grant fund might open up for, is it can help you with some kind of outreach and stuff to the community. Climate Leaders Community is also going to get a second grant pool of money for the grant, the Accelerator Program. And that's not up and running yet. We haven't even gotten anybody is designated a climate leading community yet. But that one is both going to be broader and bigger. It's going to, right now, the Climate Leaders competitive grants are on the order of $200,000, $220,000. The accelerator grants are going to be more on the order of over $750,000. They're going to be larger grants meant to be doing big things. That's it in a nutshell for the grants. Do you want to take questions on this, or I'll move over to, what was the other one?
One second. Any councilor have a question about grant? Councilor Derby.
Oh, actually, I don't have any questions on grants. I just wanted to make a comment.
Go ahead.
So, as part of committee deliberations, I was hard on Cassie and Connie And honestly, I was going to bring this forward. I got beat to the punch. And the reason why I asked a lot of difficult questions was because, I wanted to ensure that if we adopted this, it wouldn't have consequences that we didn't anticipate. And I think that, those questions were answered to my satisfaction. I think that, they did a great job of kind of outlining those tonight. I think some of the apprehension here from builders, because I talked to a lot of builders and architects and people in the community, and there was a lot of apprehension. A lot of it has to do with stretch code, which is different than the specialized code. Because there's some ambiguity there around when that does kick in, what it will be. So people are a little on edge. So there is some tension in the community. But I wanted to make sure that we weren't going to impact the major projects that we have in the city now, the school reuse, the Ferry Street project, the affordable housing projects that we had coming up. And I think that, to my satisfaction, those are going to be protected, because a lot of them are going to meet that. There are existing buildings, et cetera, et cetera. But I think I wouldn't be doing my due diligence if we didn't, protect those projects and make sure that they were a priority. Not that, this isn't a priority, because I think this is really important. And, I'll never forget, I was there when we passed the first stretch code, and the late Bernie Gagall told me that it was going to kill building in Easthampton. And I think that was in 2009 or something. So I think we've done okay since then. So I don't think this is going to hurt necessarily. I think it will have an impact on new construction for sure. Because when you talk about passive house, that is an emerging standard, and it requires air handling, which is going to have to be done by specialized systems that aren't necessarily widely available. So I do think it will have an impact, but I don't think it will be a widely negative impact, because this is going to become more standardized, and these things are going to get cheaper. And as people start to build new construction, hopefully those costs will stabilize. But I just wanted to make sure that I said that and acknowledge the hard work. So, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Denham?
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that just kind of piggybacking on what Vice President Derby is saying, I think that there was a lot of confusion between the stretch code and the specialized code, and I think that there is a great deal of concern around cost. And so my question to Mr. Mason is, can you talk about, or can you give examples of incentives that are available to builders, so that when they're building and they're like, holy cow, this is becoming increasingly more expensive as I'm building, what are the incentives then that they're going to help kind of bring those costs back down again?
Sure. Trying to actually find the right documentation for that myself. So the Mass Save program offers subsidies for building, even if you build just to the current code. You can actually get this up. The builder will actually get a subsidy. Here we go. For Mass Save 1 to 4 units, all electric homes, if you get a HERS rating of 45, it's a measure of energy efficiency. You'll get $15,000 from Mass Save. If you bring that, and that's going to be at the code level. If you go below code, or if you go more efficient than code, if you get down to HERS 35, passive house for single family, you can get $25,000 from Mass Save. For the multifamily homes, if you have the specialized code, you're going to have to be working to passive house. You can get $3,000 per unit, plus design study funding. So there's Mass Save provides funding for the multifamily as well. There's also federal Inflation Reduction Act funds, $2,500 to $5,000 per home. Tax credits aligned with the HERS rating, up to $6 a square feet for tax credit for commercial and multifamily. All of these funds, the Mass Save funds I'm talking about, are put into effect by the Energy Efficiency Advisory Council, which goes through a 3-year cycle. And it tells the utilities basically what they need to have in their mass save programs. Another cycle is coming through, and my understanding is that these incentives actually will be going up. I don't know exactly how they are right now, but the state is very dedicated to making sure this works. And so the subsidies, and when they do go in effect, they will be in effect for 3 more years, in which case the Energy Efficiency Advisory Council will then kick in again. But at the moment, the trend is higher level of subsidies. I also want to say that if you are worried about, say, someone, a first-time home buyer, being able to afford this and whether the specialized stretch code is going to make it harder or not. Generally speaking, all electric homes are the cheapest way to build a home. So if you're trying to build a home that you just so I can afford it, you're going to build an all electric home. And that one is not going to be affected by the specialized code. So when you're talking about the lower income folks or the folks who are just trying to get to that first home, the specialized code is not going to impact you.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Mr. Mason. And then I just, one other point that I think we had discussed, and so it's not really a question, it's really just more of a comment so people are aware, is that, well, there's 2 points really. One is that say we pass this and it's just not working through our conversation with Mr. Mason, we would have the opportunity to rescind it at any point in the future. That's point one that we had discussed. And the second point I think is a little bit more important to the conversation of how this impacts builders. In our conversation, a local builder was saying, look, we're having difficulty getting from, I can't remember what it was, 52 to 45 in terms of HERS rating. And I think that what's really important to understand is, I think part of that policy discussion or challenges, that's really for the states to be able to navigate those issues and concerns with builders and not necessarily what's happening within the city, right? And the passage of this particular ordinance. And so I think that that's it's something to keep in mind and understand that this is a larger conversation that is happening across the state and not just within Easthampton. And so some of those conversations and some of those challenges have to come from DOER kind of intervening and engaging with builders to be able to kind of navigate those questions that may be a challenge. But again, going back, what's really impacting builders at this particular time is the stretch code, not necessarily the specialized code. And so I just want to kind of reiterate that as well.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor have any questions, comments, concerns? Councillor Derby?
Just a quick question for Councillor Denham.
Oh, for Councillor Denham. Can you just stop the sharing the document? That way we can have a better view of Councillor Denham when she's talking.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
So we've covered this pretty completely, I think. I think the only outstanding thing is one of the components of this is a adoption date. And so we had thrown around a few different dates. I just wanted to check with Councillor Denham because I can't remember exactly what date we had settled on, whether it was a year or whether it was 18 months. So I just want to make sure that people understand that as well.
Yeah, Connie.
Yes. Go ahead, Cassie.
Oh, sorry. I have some information about that. So that was a question of we need to adopt it tonight so that we can apply for the climate leader designation, but when would it be implemented? When would it take effect? And so the effective date can be up to 12 months. If we go longer than 12 months, we will no longer be eligible for the climate leader designation. It's not, I was able to confirm with DOER, we wouldn't really be in the spirit of the designation anymore if we wait that long. But anything up to 12 months, you could delay the effective date that far.
Any other question?
I'm just wondering what we settled on.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm asking. If that, Councillor Denham?
Yep. So two things. One, we in our discussions had agreed upon a year. But if I'm not mistaken, and Mr. Mason, you could provide insight from the other communities that have passed. I think most communities either pass it and it's in place at the time, like this evening at the point of, or I think it's 6 months. But Mr. Mason, maybe you have more kind of insight of what other cities have done.
Sure. I don't think there is actually a regulation that says when it has to be done. I would not advise passing it and then have it go in place right away. I think it's really wise to have like a 6-month period where it only kind of becomes a concurrency period where you can build to the specialized or you can build to the stretch code. Gives builders and the building community a chance to kind of get used to it. I think 6 months is probably what the most common out there. If you've passed it and you want to go this way, then waiting 12 months just seems a bit much. And then we do ask that when it goes into effect, either be July or January, so that you don't have builders looking at a code change at any month of the year. You're going to get a code change. So this way, it's going to be changed and it's going to get implemented in July, or it's going to get implemented in January. They're kind of looking for that at the moment.
Thank you. Councilor Denham?
Yep. So I think that's the question that the council then needs to decide. So if we do the July date, then technically we're now over 12 months. And if we do January 1, we would be at about 6 months. So I think that that's a conversation that we have to decide on as a council.
Any concern? Councilor Riley?
Do we need to hold a completely separate motion to vote on what that time should be?
No, we can deliberate and agree that it's going to be 6 months.
So then I'm in full support of 6 months at January 1st. That makes the most sense.
Any other councilor? No one else? Councilor Denham, something else before I go to the public?
Nothing.
Okay. Anyone from the public have any questions or comments about this ordinance? Please go to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes.
My name is Connie Dawson. I live at 12 Knight Avenue, and I am a member of the Easthampton Energy Advisory Committee, which strongly supports passage of this measure. And I also would like to tell everyone here what an important part of all of the work that our committee has done, Cassie Traggart, has been for us. We would have not been able to do anything without her. She's a very smart, really easy to work with, incredibly hard worker, very creative. We really are going to miss her. Thank you so much. So I don't have a lot of new to say, except I think it is useful to know that 44 cities and towns have already adopted the specialized code. There are 12 municipalities that are in process and planning to adopt it. So it is something that's happening throughout the state. Northampton and Amherst in Western Massachusetts have already adopted it. And then just to reiterate why we as a committee really support this. First of all, buildings are the second source, big source of pollution in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. So it's really important for us to get a handle on changing the way we heat and cool our homes and use energy in general. We have to get off of fossil fuels. I think this issue of providing consumer protection by having all new buildings that use any kind of fossil fuels wired while the building is being built, so that when the transition has to happen, the consumers don't have to spend huge amounts of money rewiring for something that could have been done very easily and cost effectively initially. And then the other issue is this issue of our being able to become a climate leader community. I think that, as Cassie said, this could be how we are able to have a sustainability coordinator. Right now, Cassie
is performing the functions of the sustainability coordinator, although it is not really her job. And some of the things that are happening in terms of our climate plan are really going to require a designated person to make sure that all of these things actually happen and fall into place. And we really can't expect the Conservation Commission agent to do that job any longer. And also, I would like to reiterate, I think everyone knows this now, but this does not affect renovations, additions, or historic buildings. It's just new construction. So I hope that you will vote for this. I think it is really important to do it now. And I also would really prefer, I agree that it should be 6 months, and that is typically what municipalities have been choosing to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, David Boyle, 146 Holyoke Street. I'm not an active builder, but I would say that this is a good step. I have a 23K solar system, and which has led me to research a lot of things and become involved with 2 alternative energy companies. There are things coming out in 3 or 4 years on the electric side that, if this stuff is in place, will be very helpful. It's coming, and it won't be hydrogen. It's coming.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Donna Chappello. I live in Eastworks at 116 Pleasant Street. I'm a resident, and I have 2 questions. One for Christopher is whether or not this will apply to buildings like my building, where I live in Eastworks, whether renovations come in the form of affordable housing or market rate housing. And my second question, which it may have been addressed already because I came in a little late, but I wanted to know if, what do I want to know? If this applies to buildings that are already being built, so the projects on Main Street, for example, and the one that's coming up in Oliver Street, or if this is just new construction going forward. And my comment is that I volunteer with Habitat for Humanity, and Habitat for Humanity has been building houses in Northampton and Greenfield and Conway, and all of their houses are being built all electric with mini splits and heat pumps and solar systems. And they've been able to do it very effectively. The houses are really nice. And so I'm in favor of this.
Thank you. Mr. Mason?
Okay, sure. So projects such as Eastworks, they're existing buildings, so the specialized code won't affect them. And if you're working on that building, you're going from an existing building, so renovation or an addition. So that falls into that category. In any existing buildings, building projects that are happening right now, they're already locked into the, when they got their permits, it was under the current code, and that's what they're locked into, and it won't change. So this will only be once it's implemented.
Thank you. Councilor Denham?
In terms of the construction that's taking place on Main Street, so that development that's going in, their intent is to do passive housing, and so it would already kind of meet the criteria of the specialized code.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Anyone participating remote? Seeing none, Councilor Denham.
Yep. So I'd like to read the motion. I move to amend Chapter 4, Buildings and Building Regulations by adding a new Section 4-2.1, Adoption of the Specialized Energy Code, 225 CMR Section 23, or 22 and 23, to read as follows. The Specialized Energy Code, as found in 225 CMR Sections 22 and 23, including appendices RC and CC in their entirety, is hereby adopted as the minimum energy code for the city, including future additions, amendments, or modifications thereto, for the purpose of regulating the design and construction of buildings for the effective use of energy and reduction of greenhouse gas emissions with an effective date of January 1st, 2025.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to amend the Chapter 4 by adding new Section 4-2.1, adopting the Specialized Energy Code 225 CMR, Section 22 and 23. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara.
JT Terrell.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Tamara Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Cassie. Good job. Thank you. Now we have an amendment to the traffic rules and order. Councilor Derby.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, public safety looked at two different sections of parking on Main and Union Streets. And we are only going to be affecting two of the areas that we looked at, but I'm going to have three motions, and I'll explain where those sections are. So in front of the Congregational Church, going down towards Pepin, there's a set of parking spaces that are reserved for Sunday parking only. And as we deliberated and looked at those spaces and kind of anticipated what the current load of parking demand is downtown, we thought it would be a good idea to make those parking spaces permanent and not just reserved for Sundays. And so that's one of the spaces that we looked at. The other one, if you look at the Congregational Church as it faces Big E's, there is a section for parking that is reserved for Sundays again. And if you look at where that section of parking is, it is a massive obstruction to Union Street. So if you were taking a right from Main Street onto Union Street, you'd basically be taking a right into somebody's car that was parked there. So we felt that that was a safety hazard and that there should be no parking at any time there. And so basically what the motions would do is they would allow parking for that first section of parking spaces at all times. And then the next one would strike the Sunday-only parking on the, let me see, west side of the church and make that a permanent no parking. So that's what we have. Happy to entertain any questions.
Any councilor have any questions or comments or concerns? Seeing none, anyone from the public have any questions, comments, concerns about these parking regulations? Anyone remote? Seeing none, Councilor Derby.
So we did do a site visit, I think I said that, but we also voted to approve these changes 3-0. And I will start with the first motion. I move to amend section 1-25, parking prohibited on certain streets during certain hours, subsection A and B, by striking the following: Main Street, southerly side, from the intersection of Main and Union Streets in a westerly direction to the intersection of Main and Clark Avenue. No parking at any time with the exception of Sundays from 8 to 1. And then the, and Barbara, do you want me to do these all together?
Yeah, do it
Okay.
together.
And then amend section 1.1-25, parking prohibited on certain streets during certain hours, subsection B, by striking the following: Union Street, westerly side, from the intersection of Union and Main Streets for a distance of 214 feet in a southerly direction. No parking at any time with the exception of Sundays from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. And to amend section 1-24, parking prohibited in certain streets at all times, by adding the following: Union Street, westerly side, from the intersection of Union and Main Streets for a distance of 214 feet in a southerly direction. And that is the motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to amend Appendix A, Traffic Rules and Order, Section 1-24 and 1-25 regarding parking restriction on Main Street and Union Street. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Tamara Smith.
Aye.
JT Terrell.
Aye.
Motion passes. Councilor Derby.
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close public hearing. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Barbara?
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Tamara Smith.
Aye.
J.T. Terrell.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Motion passes. Public hearing is officially closed. I will open public speak time one more time. For those one that didn't say anything before, this is the time to address anything that wasn't related at the public hearing. So you have, you're going to have 2 minutes and 30 seconds to talk to the council.
Me to go now?
As soon as you say your name, you
David
start.
Boyle, 146 Holyoke Street. An apartment and commercial property owner, former chairperson of master plan and the Riverside Windows Project, which the city helped contribute a lot of money towards through the Preservation Fund. I have no direct affiliation to Riverside, but 2 cousins that are former clients, friends in town that had a daughter and son as clients, and my son used to be an employee. Currently, as a landlord, I have a few residents that have rents that are 30% below the current market rate. I will continue that for them until they leave on their own, because I do not have to answer to anyone, and I do not have to fulfill a nonprofit mission. However, Riverside has a duty, it's duty-bound to fulfill its mission of empowering people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to live rich and full lives as best they can. Remember, Riverside started as a residential program and a sheltered workforce program, which was the first steps away from institutions. Their mission is very serious. We had institutions, we all know what they were like. Obviously, fulfilling that mission may include a symbiotic relationship with artists or possibly other groups, but that relationship has to be at the minimum close to revenue neutral. Riverside also has to answer to state funding and their requirements. It must not be at a significant revenue loss. Unfortunately, gentrification, which is happening, is a tough paradox. Everybody is hopeful. Everybody wants to be up and coming. But unfortunately, up and coming is also mean, because it's not for everybody. There will be displacement, unless there's some kind of sacrifice that's shared by all. Easier intended than accomplished. But one example would be, would the city consider foregoing its real estate tax? I know full well the ramifications, the discussions that would go. But put your money where your mouth is. It's $24,000 roughly. With the city, we have a school that's very rich, and because of the Dover Amendment, doesn't pay real estate taxes. We have disabled people paying real estate taxes. Is that it?
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a bunch. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good evening, councilors. Mike Tausnick, 166 Hendrick Street. I won't use nearly that kind of time. I'm here to support the resolution that I believe is going to come before you tonight. We built this community on arts. It's important to promote arts. It's important to show that we support arts in this community. I wouldn't want to be in your shoes to have to directly deal with the issue that's been talked about tonight, but I do believe that the vote tonight would be an important step forward in the resolution. Thank you.
Hi, my name's George Shaw. I live on Chapman Avenue. Do you mind if I just read from this? I'm a little nervous. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to us and air our concerns. And I'd also like to apologize if we're burdensome, as some people have claimed. But I believe that this discussion is important to both the city, the artist community, and even Riverside Industries. So a little on my background. I'm an artist who lives in this wonderful city, a father of a special needs child, and the grandfather of 2 neurodivergent children. It's a big word now. So my perspective might be slightly different from other people. I'm very sympathetic, obviously, to Riverside and what they're doing. But I don't think that, our interests and their interests are mutually exclusive, which seems to be how it's being presented from one side more than the other. I'm also a survivor of multiple artist displacements extending back to the 80s. So this isn't new to me. It's my observation and opinion that every time we're displaced, the community loses some of its luster and joy. I'd like to note that it's almost July, and none of us know exactly what our rent increases are. We can kind of figure it out, but we don't know what the terms of the leases are, what future increases are, but we're supposed to make a decision before September that's, going to greatly affect all of us. I doubt and I hope that I'm wrong, you'll be able to stop these rent increases, as Ms. Ireland, and I apologize, I stated it's a done deal. What I'm seeking is that the city find a way to invest in an essential element of our community, the arts. It's time to think creatively, perhaps renting unused city buildings to us, funding rent subsidies, or perhaps buying the building from Riverside and converting it to an artist building. It's my opinion that the building has been mismanaged for years, and there's a kind of a crisis. I know that the fire department is, looking closely at the building. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Margaret Larson, and I'm a tenant at One Cottage. So I'm urging you to support the resolution, but I also want to talk specifically about what's happening at Cottage Street. My husband, Greg, and I have been in the building for 16 years. We rent 4,000 square feet on the first floor. We own a woodworking shop as well as a golf simulator. We also used to own the New England School of Architectural Woodworking, and we brought hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people to this community. I thank Mr. Plotkin for his support of the artists, but unfortunately, I believe his ideas will come to fruition far too late for many of us. Our own square foot rate has doubled over the last 16 years, which was appropriate and expected, but now it's doubling again within a few short months. That means our annual rent will be almost $50,000 a year. I challenge all of you to face an increase of that magnitude in the middle of a fiscal year and not panic. Given the repeated refusals to meet with our tenant association, Greg and I wrote a reasonable proposal that allows us to stay and provides Riverside with one reliable tenant rather than multiple tenants and the turnover often associated with that. That proposal was flatly denied without a counter. All tenants understand the financial challenges faced by Riverside as well as the condition of the building because we live with the challenges and restrictions every day. However, that's always been a trade-off we accepted as a quirky building in return for lower rent. I personally struggle with the lack of transparency from Riverside. We've been told that the increase is directly tied to a new strategic plan, but when I asked for a copy, my request was not granted. President Lynn Ireland told us at a tenant meeting that Riverside may move their operations within the building. This adds even more uncertainty to an already untenable situation, because some of us may take heroic measures to stay, only to be surprised with displacement at a later date. And given the short notice for the rent increase, we can't count on an appropriate time frame to move. Finally, most of us, as George said, have yet to see new leases, but are supposed to make decisions by August 1st, with rent increasing in September. For tenants like us, with unique space needs and heavy equipment to move, this is unreasonable. All of this feels disrespectful and lacking in compassion and empathy. I expected more.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Lynn Ireland. I'm the villain in the room. I am the president and CEO of Riverside Industries. I will submit a record in case I run out of time of this, but I think it's important to understand that Riverside Industries is a private entity. We own and operate One Cottage Street, and our mission is empowering people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Let me repeat that. Part of the most vulnerable population you can have. And our job, our mission is to support those people. As the president of Riverside, It is my duty to exercise fiscal responsibility over every aspect of the program and the building. I have to assure that every single dollar spent is in the best and highest use in alignment with our mission. We are one of the largest employers here in the city of Easthampton. We have 140 employees, 98 of which are your constituents. They and their families live here in the city of Easthampton. They support the vibrancy and the economy of Easthampton. So we work with 200 clients a day in a number of ways. We have an employment program. 60 to 70 clients daily work at UMass, Amherst College, Westfield State University, Big Y, Center School in Long Meadow, and many, many more places. They earn a paycheck, they feel valued, and they have purpose. It's extremely important for all of us and for them. Our community-based day services is all about bringing the clients out of the building and integrating them into the communities where they live, creating informal supports, giving them volunteer opportunities, outings, and truly becoming an integrated member of that community. Many of you may have seen when they come across to the fire station, it's their favorite volunteer opportunity. They work side by side with the firefighters. They also go their favorite outing to a horse farm, which is extremely therapeutic and also enjoyable for them. Our day habilitation program, we serve almost 60 clients daily in very highly medically compromised health status, where they receive nursing services, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, all in an effort to create independence. I ask you to advocate as strongly as you are for the artisans for Riverside. It can't be on the back of these clients to support and subsidize artisans. I don't have the solution.
Thank you.
But it cannot happen.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Marcus Jones. I serve as the Senior Director of Development and Strategic Operations for Riverside Industries. I'm speaking on behalf of Riverside. As Lynn mentioned, Riverside owns and operates One Cottage Street, a historic mill property that came into its possession by an act of individual philanthropy. The building was donated with the intention of being a permanent home for Riverside's operations and to serve as an asset to financially support the organization. As staff members of Riverside, it is our obligation to use that gift as it was intended, which is in support of our mission. It is disheartening that some of One Cottage Street's tenants are putting their desire for below-market rent above the needs of Riverside and our clients, one of the most vulnerable populations in our community. Through a targeted campaign, this same group of tenants has spread misinformation through the media, direct contact with our donors, our banking partners, vendors, our volunteer board of directors, you, our city council members, and our state legislative delegation. As of this afternoon, 14 tenants and 13 non-tenants continue to send emails as part of an ongoing email campaign. I believe these individuals have knowingly painted a negative image of Riverside by stating its leaders have acted in harmful or unfair business practices. This is a gross misrepresentation and cannot be further from the truth. In my opinion, these actions are meant to only harm Riverside's reputation and to pressure its leadership to bend to their own personal desires. These actions have the potential to negatively impact Riverside's ability to conduct business and ultimately deliver our services. As a member of Riverside's staff leadership team, I assure you the decision to strategically equalize rental rates at One Cottage Street was not made in haste. Our staff and our volunteer leaders have a share of mind about Riverside's mission, our strategic vision for the organization. We are deeply committed to our clients and will remain steadfast and relentless in our pursuit of Riverside's mission. I am immensely proud to stand in support of Riverside and the individuals in our care. Riverside's mission is to empower individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities to live rich and full lives. I choose this mission every single day, and I now encourage this City Council to stand with us in support of that mission, Riverside's program participants, and the dedicated staff who care for them every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is John Andrew. I live at 96 Everett Street, and I'm a tenant at 1 Cottage Street. I've been there for 6 years. I wasn't planning on speaking, but this is very disturbing, the stuff I'm hearing. I think this model that's been being put forth, that the tenants are somehow at odds or want to live on the backs of the Riverside clients, is deeply offensive and wholly untrue. There's not an artist I know in the building who isn't extremely supportive of the mission of Riverside. I'm sorry, it's so offensive, I can barely process it. We understand that the rents need to go up. We're just asking for it to be done in a way that's manageable and humane. Getting a note embedded in the 6th paragraph of a long rambling email that was about everything else, telling us that our rents were going to go up 100, 50, 25% seems unconscionable to me. When I moved into the building 6 years ago, the relationship between 1 Cottage Street and Riverside Industries was so collegial that I had difficulty parsing the difference between the two organizations. Rick Kobasek and Scott Bergeron were extremely welcoming to me. I thought they worked for 1 Cottage Street. They worked for the building. They worked for 1 Riverside. But about 2 years ago, maybe 3, this wall came down. And all we want to do is have a place at the table, have a discussion, be treated with some kind of respect. I also take issue with the model that we are somehow being subsidized. In the early years of Riverside Industry, they were reliant on the tenant and artist income to get their building afloat. So I think I've said everything I want to say. I'm sorry I'm so emotional. I didn't mean to be. But please don't accept this scenario that somehow we are trying to exploit the clients of Riverside Industries. Nothing could be further from the truth. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you talk, I know could be emotional for a few people here. I will please ask, please don't react to anything. I know it could be emotional. You could be one side, you could be the other side. I just want to ask for respect for the people that are here. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Melissa Pike. I am here as president of the building committee and the board at Riverside. I'm also a commercial and residential landlord in Easthampton. I'm providing a full statement to you because I'll never get it done fast enough. And this is an overview from 2016 till now. The building committee was formed as a result of a strategic plan under CEO Chargentes. Rental rates were identified as a vulnerability causing a deficit. 2018 market rates were raised to $12 a square foot. Pushback was from low rate, long-term, and tenants with large studios. Tenants were told at that time a meeting with the board of directors was inappropriate. Tenants were also told no, they cannot have a member put on the board of directors. Tenant representatives met with me and Shar and others. The $12 square foot plan was not fully achieved, mostly due to the pushback, then the pandemic, then our leadership changes. 2024, we're undergoing another strategic plan. Once again, it has been identified that our rents are a vulnerability. Market rate has been raised to $15 a square foot. Again, pushback from much of the same tenants. Tenants again have been told that a meeting with the board of directors is inappropriate as the board of directors in the RSI mission do not include the tenants. This occurred at a meeting in May with the Tenant Association representatives Margaret and Greg Larson, attended by me, Lynn Ireland, Marcus Jones, and Sergio Hernandez. As a building committee chair, I provided the Larsons with my accurate personal email and asked them to follow up with me the next day after their first tenant association meeting. Multiple emails requesting a meeting with the board have been sent to some of our board and some of our community members. To date, I have only received one communication from a tenant regarding rent. Please note, the personal email I shared was for the purpose of communicating questions, concerns, suggestions for review by the building committee. My personal email, title, and name were then posted on the internet without my permission, and this is violating to me. The email campaign has been nothing short of harassment. To date, I've received 30 emails, an additional 20 from one person alone. I think, sorry, I can't finish. The next portion is going to identify that there are 15 tenants under $9 a square foot, and there are 29 new tenants between 12 and 15 since our rate increase in 2018.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Burns Maxey. I am the president of City Space. We are the nonprofit that manages the Old Town Hall as a center for the arts for Western Massachusetts. I am standing here on behalf of City Space tonight. It is what City Space does. We are dedicated to keeping access to arts spaces affordable in Old Town Hall. It's a historic building, if you're not familiar with it, centrally located on Main Street. In alignment with our mission and goals, we believe in the economic and creative value of the arts. Therefore, at our monthly board meeting just last night, on Monday, June 24th, we voted unanimously to support this resolution by the Easthampton City Council in support of affordable artist workspaces in Easthampton. I hope you'll consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? What's that? Only one copy.
I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, and I don't have much prepared, but I moved here in 1992 and got a studio space, and I was really excited to see that there was something called Riverside Industries in the building. They were my landlords, but where I grew up in Troy, Ohio, there was also a Riverside, and it had exactly the same mission. I would go there with my mother. It's painful to me that something seems to have happened to the cooperative atmosphere that used to be there. When I moved here, I could go to the cafe, I would meet with the clients, it was fun. It was amazing. It was like the most incredible example I ever saw of an integrated group of people who were people with disabilities, artists who, we have our own kind of weird niche place in the world, and the people who work at Riverside, and I love them. And I don't want to put them out of business. I don't want them to suffer. I want the floor to get fixed so nobody gets hurt. But I also don't want to leave the studio I've been renting for 30 years because my rent is going up 51%. I'm going to try really hard to stay, and I don't want it to be us versus them. I want to be able to work with them. I helped lots of times when I can. I donate every year to the auction. I know that's like just a drop in the bucket for what they need. I helped raise money when they wanted a greenhouse. I helped raise money for the elevator. I want to work with you guys, but 51% is just a lot for me to swallow in a couple months after being told that my rent was only going to go up 5% for the next few years. The last time that rent went up, I got rid of half of my space. I had a half-time job at UMass. I was so thankful. I still have a half-time job to help support myself. And I downsized, and I did as much as I could to try to live with that, and it worked, and I was doing okay. But this is really going to hurt my business. I'm a business person. I make pottery. It's hard. I can't raise my prices 51%. I have raised my prices. I did everything reasonable for a business, and I will raise my prices. But I just would like to slow this down a little bit, and for us to be able to work together and to talk and meet, but we haven't been allowed to meet with the board. I've been told to only email the building committee, and that's what I've been doing. I've been trying really hard to follow the rules. I don't want to harass people, but I want to stay.
Thank you. Before you go, can you please tell us your name?
Is Evelyn Snyder. I own Kaleidoscope Pottery on the fourth floor, and
Thank
I
you.
love it, and I love
Thank you.
Riverside.
Anyone else?
30 seconds. Ron Pike, proud husband of a Riverside volunteer. Just as far as the equalization of rates, there's 98 tenants. Since 2018, there's 29 new tenants. 27 of those new tenants are paying between $12 to $15 a foot. All anyone has to do in that building is look down the hall to their neighbors and see what the new comparative market rates are in the building. All the new tenants since 2018 are paying $12 to $15. When they wanted to institute a new rate back in 2018, it didn't get achieved, but anyone new is paying that new rate. And those new tenants have been paying an escalation costs. Every year they pay, a 2%, 3%, or whatever rate. So it's just a matter of a lot of the older tenants, just with a lot of pushback, always seem to get their way. The new people in the building are paying a new rate. They're happy to be there. Everybody's thriving. I don't know what else to say.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jana Ugoni. I am a tenant of 1 Cottage Street since 1987. I've employed up to 25 people. Today I have 10. Most of them have been with me for 20 plus years. I'm definitely going to get emotional, and I apologize for that. And I'm not a good speaker, public speaker, but what I'm hoping for is some way that the city, perhaps, Riverside, and the tenants, Lynn, I'm looking at you. I'm hoping you're looking at me.
Please talk to us. Just talk to us,
Okay,
please.
very good.
Thank you.
But my heart goes out to everybody right now. This is a very difficult situation. Let's all put that right out there on the table. It's difficult for everyone. And emotions flying high never helps. But there are so many things at stake. Riverside's at stake. My company's at stake. Not only do I have these employees that have been with me for so long, but I have vendors in this community that are second generational that will be affected if I close. So again, I'm sorry, but there's a big impact with this decision for all of us, for the town, because it used to be a spooky place at 11 o'clock when I left it in Easthampton, and the police welcomed us to call them to escort us to our car in the back. We cut our teeth here, and we loved every minute of it, and I love the community with Riverside as an integral part of that building vibe. And it's so disheartening that this is what it's come to. But let's be honest, Riverside's in some kind of a crisis mode to have reacted so much in this short period of time to save Riverside. And we know their mission. We understand their mission. We would love to help in more ways. When we first came up with the artist auction, that was out of a communal effort for all of us to say, how can we get this off the ground even more for Riverside? I have served on the Windows of Opportunity, which was the fundraiser for the windows I've put in gardens, I have done signage, I'm constantly redoing colors. I will do anything. I support the arts with materials. I'm right in there with Riverside, and I know you're saying thank you, but can the city and Riverside and the arts perhaps get together to see if there's some funding available?
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me go over.
I just want to explain something to the public. I don't know if you realize at the public hearing, we have interaction between councilors, our public, and experts. As a part of the public speak time, that is not allowed. By open meeting law, we are not allowed to participate in deliberation with the public in public speak time because it's not part of the agenda. It's not because we want to be rude or we don't want to engage with you folks. It's because we're not allowed. I just want to clarify that in case someone don't get why we are not making questions or deliberating with you guys. All right, let's move on. I have communication for elected officials, boards, and committee. I don't think Mr. Gonzalez-Denham, you have a question?
Yeah, sorry. That was, you had public speak for people in the room. Did you want to open it up for people online? I just want to be fair.
Is anyone online that want to participate? Seeing none. Thank you, Councilor Denham. Again, I didn't see, I don't know if Mr. Matt is here. I will ask the council if this will be closed for him to come to the full council and tell us why he disagreed with the decision of the mayor. Or we, as a council, we can give it another opportunity to come to the July meeting. I will contact him again and invite him to the July meeting. If Mr. Matt didn't show up on July 10th, then we close this chapter. Now we have the property committee member from, I think, Councilor Saret. He sent one. I don't know who's going to read it.
I guess it's me.
Okay. Do you have it? I have it here.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. I have it on my phone, but it's easier.
And I know we have the mayor. We have, I'm pretty sure it's this one. We have the mayor, we have our city solicitor, Mark Tanner, and the procurement officer, Michael Owen, here for the follow-up after we hear from Councilor Peak on behalf of Councilor Sarah.
Are we going to do that during property, or are we going to do it now?
I got it now.
This is just the fact that we received the memo.
Okay.
So we can discuss it during property probably in more depth.
Yeah, but read that first.
So I'll read it now, and then we're going to.
Yeah, and then we can, and then, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So just to be clear, these are Councilor Zaret's words, and they may or may not represent my own. I'm just doing my job. I say that with all due respect. Members of the City Council, the Property Committee met on June 11th to discuss and consider a recommendation to remove the provision for public access to the Pepin Gym space from the Land Disposition and Development Agreement, LDA, with Arch Communities. The committee voted 2, Councilor Zaret and myself, to 1, Councilor Kwasinski, to recommend the removal of the provision to the council. Following the May 2023 selection of Arch Communities as the preferred developer of the 3 surplus former schools, the city made a significantly concerted effort to negotiate terms to fulfill the provision of maintaining public use of the Pepin Gym space. Such terms would require a 30-year commitment from the city or other committed party to the space, including a triple net lease. This would not include other operational expenses, staffing, and logistics surrounding operation of the space. Estimates for basic triple net carrying costs range from $12,000 to $14,000 per month.
While this does not represent a nominal cost, in quotes, based on research on hourly rates for gym space extrapolated to monthly rates, while this does represent a nominal cost based on research on hourly rates for gym space rental extrapolated to monthly rates, the accrued yearly costs of are likely close to or exceeding $200,000 in 2024 dollars with staffing, et cetera, over 30 years raises questions for the city. Over the course of the past year, the city engaged in conversations with a number of other organizations who might consider operational responsibilities of the space. An RFII was issued in May of 2024 to assess similar interest with no returned responses. Present at the meeting were Mayor LaChapelle, City Procurement Officer Owens, City Solicitor Tanner, and Arch Communities Developer Mr. Relic. These stakeholders provided in-depth information surrounding the LDA negotiation process and the efforts taken to honor the Pepin Gym provision. Committee members participated in a robust Q&A with stakeholders to clarify the process and efforts surrounding the negotiations and other questions relevant to the provision. It was underscored numerous times that the council and public had a vested interest in the use of the gym space, and the city was making a concerted effort to honor this via the provision in the LDA. The committee recognized these efforts, the exhaustive nature of such efforts, and the current impasse with the negotiation process. It is important to note that the developer has missed out on a few rounds of affordable housing tax credits, which are key to proceeding with funding this project. Following a thorough discussion, the committee arrived at the 2-to-1 recommendation from the council to remove the provisions in order to allow the provision for public use to the Pepin Gym to be removed from the LDA. Removal of this provision will result in the addition of at least 4 60% AMI affordable units to be added to the project. The provision for public use of the cafetorium space will continue to be included in the LDA. While not germane to the item, there was expressed interest in pursuing gym space via future projects in the city. Please reach out individually for any questions or clarifications. Guess it's a little late for that.
Yeah, a little late. Thank you, Councilor Peak. What I'm gonna do, Madam Mayor, is I'm gonna allow you to do mayor's communication. Then we're gonna have communication for the vice president and president, and we're going to property to finish this. So, mayor communication.
Thank you, Mr. President. That was a lot. So I think I start with just mayor communication. Okay. A couple of comments I was going to make actually have been addressed around the EV ordinance as well as the stretch code. Quick comments I'll make on those both. Thank you very much. It means a lot for the capital, also for the capital improvement plan, because we have some very key energy-related projects on that capital improvement plan that directly go to our climate goals, and this gets us a couple of steps forward. If, as far as projects like these and what you've just adopted, one, the EV net zero vehicle policy, that ordinance provides a great template and form that we're adopting that actually walks through what we're choosing. I mean, there is a requirement now, but it's somewhat informal. This is a really great form that explains what we're buying, how it falls in with the policy. It also clarifies all the jargon for each type of car, the difference between hybrid and partial hybrid, plug-in versus regenerative. The work that Cassie, Connie, Jamie Paquette, Josh did on this is phenomenal. Cassie's been asked and has spoke on statewide conferences about this work, but thank you very much for supporting it. Last night was the public hearing for the municipal electric aggregation plan with a presentation from Good Energy, who's walking us through the process. Very informative. That information will be there'll be a link on our website to the website that specifically walks through the plan that has been put together by the Energy Advisory Committee. Tomorrow we have a hearing with the Department of Energy Resources about our plan, and there is still opportunity for the public to comment on that plan or put forward questions until early July. I think it's July 8th. I forgot to ask Cassie. But I just wanted to put it out there, the presentation and also the examples. Members of the Hadley Energy Committee, he came over and talked about the savings and just the structure of the plan. And there are examples in their presentation that shows on potential savings. There is also an option to opt out. There is also the base plan, which is what we get from Eversource. So it's not that people are being forced into a higher electricity rate. The one thing it does not do, and we're not allowed to do as a municipality or even a consumer of electricity, are the delivery charges and the demand charges. Those are set by DPU based on the application of Eversource or National Grid. And it's basically how you get electricity from their transformer and their plant to the house and to our houses. And in that is maintenance of the grid, expansion of the grid, line work. So this is about supply and what you pay for your kilowatt hours as they are. So again, would encourage public to take a look at the material and hit the link for comment or questions. This is another big step for us with the climate action plan. What all three of these steps forward also are related or similar to the housing choice designation we saw it, the local rapid recovery program, where we were almost first at the table to get them, and we were unknown what kind of grant money we would have gotten or what the grant programs were. We ended up getting over $1 million for housing because we had that designation. Actually, Ferry Street, $2.7 million for that because we took the leap. Also for the local rapid recovery, money to small businesses and whatnot. So this designation attached to the climate action plan is very similar to steps we've taken in the past to really prepare to take advantage of opportunities that are not all defined at this point. So I wanted to speak to that. What was next on the list?
You're going to have the opportunity later for the gym, Pep and Gym?
Yeah.
You're going to have opportunity later to do that after our communication.
Yeah, that's all I had.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Correspondence announcement. I never asked if any of the council have any for tonight. No? Sorry, I apologize. correspondence announcement from the President, Mr. Vice President, Councilor Derby.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have a couple tonight. So this is from the city. Easthampton will participate in a 30-day process, June 20th to July 20th, to collect and report accurate information about available internet access in the city, as well as its speed and reliability. We need your help gathering evidence of issues with internet service. Between June 20th and July 20th, Easthampton residents are strongly encouraged to conduct multiple speed tests at different times of the day through a special portal, houseyourinternet.org, to document that internet service is not as fast, reliable, or available as providers claim. Step 1, visit houseyourinternet.org and click on the button to access the map, then enter your home address. Select the speed test under the service challenges window in the bottom left corner of the screen to complete the speed test, and complete the speed test and enter your personal information if prompted. Check your inbox for reminders to take 2 additional required speed tests if available. So that can be very helpful to improve internet.
Thank you.
Yep.
Before you're gonna read something, I have something to say, and it's about Barbara. If you have Facebook, you can tell that Barbara was recognized as a Clerk of the Year in Massachusetts, and who appointed Barbara to that position is the council. So how we can not be part of that celebration, right? We have to be part of that celebration. I'm gonna say something really quick. I know this meeting being long, but I wanna say something really quick because I think it's important, and it's really important for me. 3 years ago, when I get elected as a council president, I feel really, really comfortable because I know I'm gonna have Barbara next to me. You don't know how many times I lay down back and I say, "Hey, Barbara, can we do that?" So her knowledge, it's amazing. I don't know what the next council president is going to do because I'm not going to hear forever. I don't know when I'm going to get out, but I can tell that the next council president can feel comfortable in this position, having you next to that person.
Thank you.
What you bring to this council is valuable. Your knowledge is incredible, and I don't know how we will do stuff without you. So thank you, and we have something for you.
So this is an acknowledgement of receiving the 2024 Massachusetts Clerk of the Year Award. The Easthampton City Council is proud to present Barbara L. LeBombard with a certificate in recognition of her unwavering work ethic and dedication. With sincere gratitude and heartfelt thanks, we acknowledge her invaluable contributions to the city of Easthampton.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Now I will take the reports from standing committees. We're going to start with property because our city solicitor are here and cost us a lot of money. Do you want to?
Sure.
Councilor Peak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm the only member of the property committee here, so you are stuck with me.
Yes.
There's not much to report beyond what Councilor Zaret's memo said. We met on the day that the June 11th, and we discussed this issue. It's a challenging one, and one that I have a lot of mixed feelings about. There's things that if I could go back, there's questions I would have asked that I didn't, or things that I might have seen differently or been more involved in than I was. And so that was there's, I mean, it's tough to say learning experience when these things have real consequences. But, you know, I certainly, it was a bit of a learning experience. And there's some things that I wish had been done differently. I'll say that. My feeling, and I'm just expressing my own feeling because I'm the only one here, is that as much of this process, as many things as I would have liked to see different in this process, it's at a point where it's at where
the conditions that would have to be met for the developer, for a tenant to be in there. There's not a tenant in the world that's ever going to meet them. And so realistically, the options that we have available to us are to either remove this requirement, which is unfortunate. I know that a lot of people care very deeply about this. Or basically go back to the drawing board, because I don't know exactly what that looks like. And I certainly think that whatever it looks like, it would likely involve a delay in those schools being converted to affordable housing, and it would lead to a delay in some vulnerable people getting some housing, and it would lead to an increase in us continuing to pay for the upkeep of the city. That being said, my colleague, Councilor Kwasinski, wrote, and you all received this in your emails, so I'll leave it there, but he wrote a sort of a minority report on his perspective, and I think that he's entitled to feel the way that he does, and I know that there's probably a bunch of other people on this council who will also feel similarly, so that's fine. I'm not saying I'm thrilled about the situation. I'm not saying I'm pleased with how this went down. My personal view on it is that it sucks and it is what it is, and we just got to kind of move forward, and next time we're going to do something like this, we need to be maybe a little bit smarter about how we do some of this stuff. But that's my view, but maybe somebody else knows more about it than me, so that's my.
And Councilor Peak, what was the vote, the committee?
Yeah, the vote was 2-1. Councilor Zaret and I voted for. Councilor Kwasinski voted against to recommend the removal of the provision. Okay. I'll just also say, if somebody else has some brilliant idea that we didn't think of, like, that's also great. Where we were, kind of felt like we were kind of in a corner, and that was what I thought was the best thing to do.
Councilor Derby is going to read the email for the minority report.
And this is from JP Kwasinski. Fellow councilors, I write to you today not to convince you to save Easthampton's gym and auditorium. Although saving these two gems is a worthy goal, I write to document for posterity the opportunity the council let slip by. Some of us believe we had a resource worth millions and simply asked a developer who would agree to provide affordable housing and preserve for public use the rock-solid gym and performing arts hall for future public use at nominal cost. Definition: nominal is defined as an insignificant or trivial amount. The seller sold for a fraction of the cost, far below its real value. So I ask, is $10,000 a month a trivial amount for a local nonprofit to pay per month? It is ludicrous to think that this is a nominal fee. It's even more ludicrous to waste time on such a plan. And that instead, the city should prioritize the project and invite banks, businesses, companies, even Williston to come together for a summit meeting to figure out how to make this happen. Otherwise, the resource will be gone, the opportunity lost, and thousands of people will not have the opportunity for such public use. It would have been nice to at least say that we tried everything. James J.P. Kwasinski. Mr. President, can I?
Councilor Derby.
So as someone who was on the committee to choose the developer, and unfortunately, I missed this meeting. It was during a pretty significant time with end of school and graduations and family and whatnot. I have some pointed questions, I think, to ask. So who should I be asking those questions to?
We have all three here. I think all three could stand up, and council will make questions to all three, if needed.
So, and I'll just put this out generally. You can pick who's going to answer. The number of $12,000 to $16,000 a month. Where did that come from?
Before you answer, just for the record and for the public, we have Mayor LaChapelle, we have the city solicitor Mark Tanner, and we have the procurement Michael Owen.
And the developer, Rich, is online.
Okay. Yep. And Rich Relish?
Relic, yeah. Oh, he was.
Yeah, he's right there. Yeah,
okay.
He's right here.
I'm here. So the first question, I will defer to, I'm not sure who wants to go first around that, Michael or Rich. What I will say to the minority report and nominal. Nominal is related to the type of development. It's also related to the type of use, and not just to that space, but the common area as well. And we all know that there are significant impediments to reach that space and throughout the building for ADA accessibility. That said, that was kind of the, that was the description that we put out to both the developer and in the request for information. The request for information was put out publicly, like any other RFP. It was sent to leadership. It was sent to the city council, the school committee, as well as major not-for-profits in this area in Western Mass, asking them if they are interested in developing this property, this space within the property. And we did not get one response. So it was, around that, then around the RO request for information, the developer worked with the procurement officer to talk about, build out that nominal cost. So I'm not trying to skip that over, but that's what got us to the point. My inquiries before that, calling YMCA, Holyoke Boys and Girls Club, Girls Inc. and whatnot, was informal and making phone calls. We discussed with the city attorney and the procurement officer, and we said we need to put this out in a more formal way, hence getting us to the ROI. So Michael or Rich can further, Councilor Derby.
I'm just curious about the number 12 to 16,000 a month.
Okay.
I'm going to defer to Rich on that, Rich Relic.
Yep, I'm here. Hi, everyone. So that number was is an estimate of costs. It's not a markup on anything related to the property itself, but those costs would be significant to run that gym, which are estimated to include insurance, utilities, management of the space, security, CAM charges that would be passed back on a triple net lease, including real estate taxes. So that's an estimate of all the charges that the operator would face by running that gym area. That's where that number came from. It's not marked up by the property. It's just an estimate so that the entity that was looking at it would know that the costs would be significant for them. That's where the number came from.
Councilor Derby?
Rich, what would Arch Properties charge for rent for that space? To say the city was running it, what would the rent be? Because I feel like when we were talking about this, it seemed like it was almost nothing. I feel like.
Yes. So the rent. So actually, there's no markup in this number. This would just be operational cost to the entity that's running the gym.
So if the city was running it, it would be. It wouldn't be a triple net lease because there would be no tax. There would be no rent. So basically, it would just be. The cost of paying someone to be there to unlock it, lock it, and make sure the property was safely taken care of.
And utilities for that space, insurance costs for that space.
City pays insurance already.
Security. I guess the issue also is that this is going to be a completely redeveloped building that's going to have a building permit pulled, so it will have to be brought up to code. So the whole building is going to be brought up to code. So the issue is the gym would have to be brought up to code as well. So there's costs associated with improving the space.
You have another question? Or you want to wait until I go around?
Well, I'm just wondering, I guess, like, if we think about it, so before we disposed of the buildings, the gym was used for public use. Mm-hmm. Does anybody know who ran that?
I think that was the
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec. So with the school, because they have an agreement to use the gyms. They include the high school too, yeah. and the fields for the high school. They have an agreement between departments.
Right. So I was very curious when I saw that there was an ROI sent out to all these organizations when we have an organization that has been running this space for 30 plus years. That was confusing to me. And if the city runs it, we don't have to, there's no triple net lease because there's no taxes. There's no taxes if the city runs it.
Just one. Let's let Councilor Derby finish your questions and thoughts.
And so I guess this brings me to, something that I think is important to understand, which is something that we recognized when we were looking at this disposition, which was the Elias Brookings affordable housing in Springfield has an exact same situation where their gym is a public space used by Springfield's Park and Recreation, which it is. And so I think that, that model makes a lot of sense. And I think that as we discuss this, I think that, until some of these questions can be answered, I think this needs to either go back to committee or we need to get the answers to these questions. Because I guess my last question is, how is this particular piece impeding affordable housing funding? This seems like this would be the absolute last piece that any funder would be looking for, is who's using the gym. So I guess maybe Rich, so it said that we've missed a couple rounds of affordable housing grants because of this. Can you explain that?
So we need to have an LDA agreement with the city that's going to have basically a site control agreement that will allow us to move forward with our design, our engineering, all of our pre-development expenses that we need to do to be eligible for funding. It's significant. And until we get that agreement, we're waiting. So I don't want to speak for Mike and for the mayor, but the idea was that there really wasn't a use for the gym that was identified. There was no parties that were willing to take it. We've waited a considerable amount of time right now. It's basically been a year where we've looked for the use for this and try to come up with a way for it. But there needs to be an entity that's identified, that's financially viable to be able to handle the space for a long term, that can handle it, because this is 61 units of mostly affordable housing. The project is relatively small. It can't handle an unoccupied space, and it certainly can't handle it. An entity going into the space and then not being able to sustain and dropping out in a few years. That's a problem, obviously, for the property. So there really needed to be some kind of entity identified that would be interested and be able to handle the space, and that hasn't happened.
Thank you, Rick.
I'd just like to say a few things.
Yeah.
We are at an impasse at this point because no city department, no nonprofit group, no community group has the staff capacity or the fiscal capacity to take on the operation, maintenance, and management of this space. This building, all these three buildings were declared surplus by the city council over 2 years ago. Declared surplus without caveat, meaning they are no longer used, being no longer required for a public facility. Now, as part of this preferred developer designation, the city council directed the mayor to negotiate an agreement with the preferred developer, who is the owner of the building, will be the owner of the building, for public use of that gym space. We have reached out again to every possible entity we could think to partner with, and we have gotten no response. We have made an earnest effort to do this, and we have been unsuccessful. And in the meantime, the city is paying, in fiscal year 23, $119,000 plus to maintain these three buildings. In this fiscal year, we've spent upwards of $78,000 to maintain these three vacant buildings. In the meantime, it's been 12 months since the city chose this preferred developer. We cannot offer this developer any certainty in terms of the use of that gym space and how we are going to carry that cost, because we're not going to own this space. The buildings are surplus. We would be a tenant of the developer, and no matter how you cut it, it is pretty much a triple net lease that we'd be paying, or any other entity would be paying, or any of our partners would be paying. And this is the impasse we have gotten to. I will also say that this building is not in any way equal to the building you referenced down in Springfield. This building is almost 200 years old. The gym level is basically 5 feet below the outside elevation. So, you know, you're talking about major renovation of this space. And the developer is not going to be able to, has to recoup that renovation at some point, and he does it through a triple net lease. Again, the city has taken seriously the city council's direction to find a way to keep this as public use, and we have been unsuccessful, and that's why we're back in front of you tonight, because we are at an impasse. And in the meantime, we have to maintain these 3 buildings, and we're unable to execute this land disposition agreement with the preferred developer. He is still 30 months out from closing on these buildings. 30 months from the point he signs the land disposition agreement with the city. So we're in a kind of a tough spot right now. I understand the need for gymnasium space. Is this the appropriate spot for the gymnasium space that the city needs in a almost 200-year-old building that requires significant renovation and will be leased from a private individual? In my mind, it's not. And it's time to move on and allow the developer to sign the LDA with the city and get this project on track. And I'd like to just talk about nominal cost. At the property committee meeting, City Attorney Mark Tanner talked about nominal cost. I'd like for him to talk to you about that right now.
So let me just start by saying I really don't have a position in this. My job is to do the city's bidding, and whatever everybody tells me to do, I'll do. This is the last issue in negotiating the LDA. And what I suggested is let's just leave it open. Let's just say there's going to be some use of this space, right? And sign the LDA and go forward. And what the developer and the developers council said is we can't go out to funders or to banks or show people pro formas without knowing with some degree of certainty how this space is going to be used and how it's going to be paid for. The number that they're putting forward, this $12,000 roughly a year, is not profit to them. That's their actual costs to operate and carry that space. And so assuming that it...
Per month.
I'm sorry, per month. And so even assuming that it's possible to carve out the gym as a separate tax parcel and to put it on the city's insurance, you still have all the other costs associated with carrying that space. Heating, cooling, security, snow plowing, all those sorts of things that the developer, and in my mind pretty reasonably, is going to ask the city as the tenant to contribute to. So let's say that's $100,000 a year, $120,000 a year, whatever that number is. The city would have to commit to spending that amount of money every year for the next 30 years in order for the developer to go out and get to its funding sources and show them that it has this type of a tenant secured for this term, which is why I think when I spoke with the mayor, she then said, well, let's go out, let's put it out to everybody and see if anybody, quite frankly, has an interest in this space, right? Granted, it's pretty expensive space, even though they're just recouping their cost, right? And again, they reached out to a bunch of people. They put out a request for proposal. They called people. They talked to people in the community. And there was, quite frankly, and I was surprised, no one who even came back and said, hey, if you can get us a little better deal, we'll take it. Just no one responded, period. And so I just suggest to you that when you're talking about nominal cost, right, the developer is giving whoever wants the space at their cost. No markup, no fair market value, no 150% increase. This is just exactly what the developer is saying, I have to pay just to have this space here. And I'd suggest to you that, to me, that's a nominal cost, right? Because there's no markup, there's no profit. I think we're at the point where we need to tell the developer, yeah, you can go ahead and go with your project and let's sign this LDA. Because quite frankly, this is literally the last issue that's out there. Happy to answer other questions if you have other questions, but that's the point we're at.
Thank you. Councilor O'Reilly?
Yeah, so I've obviously been following this issue since day one. Before I was even a city councilor, I served with Mr. Owens on the committee to develop the request for proposals on what we thought would be the best use of these buildings. And what came out of that process was affordable housing, just affordable housing across the board. And I remember being in that moment and seeing the plan of what it takes to go from developing the RFP to actually getting people to move into these units. And it's years upon years upon years of processes that are expensive, time consuming, and delays in those processes means that we spend a lot more money and there are people in our community that can't find a place to live that's affordable. I was in support of the change at the last minute to retain the gym. Totally fine by me. I have no problem with doing that. But in terms of plans not coming to fruition exactly like they were intended to, being able to have 4 affordable housing units at 60% area median income as the oops instead of a gymnasium is probably one of the best possible oopses we could ask for. There's been so much education and advocacy around this term around affordable housing. And, when we talk about the term affordable housing with a capital A, we are talking about a HUD calculation based on the Springfield metropolitan area. And capital A affordable housing units are not actually affordable for people that live in Easthampton, right? 80% area median income for an affordable housing unit in Easthampton, you would have to have your cap is like $60-something thousand per year as a salary for a 1-bedroom. So I would gesture that a great deal of us with our families would actually qualify for affordable housing in Easthampton because of the jobs that we have and the very small stipend we get to be city councilors. These units are stunning. They're gorgeous on the inside. They provide everything that you could possibly ask for, far above what our actual housing stock in Easthampton looks like. The community that I live in, I've said this before, but there are actual animals living in the walls of the apartment buildings there. And I'm not talking about mice, I'm talking about squirrels, raccoons, rabbits, birds, because the infrastructure of our housing is that bad in that neighborhood. So we build affordable housing units with capital A affordable housing. And then we tell those families that live in those housing units that are paying $1,200 a month for rent, we have a place for you to live in, but it's going to cost $1,900 a month or $2,400 a month in order to live there. What kind of a decision is that, right? It doesn't make any sense to me. So then when we're talking about what is 60% area median income, because that's what these 4 housing units are going to be that go inside this gymnasium. 60% area median income is far more affordable for people who are poor than the 80% that developers almost always come in at, right? In order to qualify for the LIHTC tax credit, your housing units have to be 80% area median income. So what does every single developer that we come across do? They put everything at 80% because it's the most amount of money that they can gain while still qualifying for the tax credit. To me, having a developer that wants to put as many housing units into those schools that are at 80%, 60%, and I want to say maybe 30% area median income. I can't remember what the actual number is, but we have actual progressively capital A and lowercase affordable housing units available to us. So I get that it's unfortunate that we're losing a gymnasium, but there are worse possible things that we could lose. That's all.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Derby?
So I don't think anybody here is debating the importance of affordable housing. I think all of us probably up here feel that that's critically important. I think the piece that's missing here is the piece that we discussed ad nauseum when we were looking at choosing the right developer, which is if you have a lot of affordable housing, you're probably going to be bringing a lot of families into town. And if you don't have a place for those kids to recreate, then you are not going to sustain a quality of life that is worth living. Kids need to be able to run around in the winter. We live in New England. We need to have places for kids to play basketball, to play sports, and to have active lives, because that's what a healthy community has. It has people that are well-balanced, active, and healthy. And I have to say that something is not jiving with me, because if we're keeping the auditorium area as an undefined space, but for some reason the gym has to be fully defined and structured before we go forward, what am I missing? So why is it okay for the auditorium to be completely unaccounted for, and the gym has to be specifically spoken for? And before you answer that question, I would like to know, on the ROI, did the recipients of that ROI, were they informed that the cost of maintaining the space or using the space would be $12,000 to $16,000 a month? Because I have to say, that's insanity. $12,000 to $16,000 a month isn't, I mean, I'm not.
No, 12 to 14.
Not a big difference. It's insanity, and it's not accurate. And there is, and I'm going to say this again, there is not a reason in the world why we just don't say to our rec department, here's a new space, you're going to maintain this, get some staff, hire some people in the community, and we're going to open it for the kids.
That's $120,000 a year added to their budget.
I disagree with that, but
that's what it is, sir.
I'd love to see the figures on that.
That's what it is.
At our next meeting, you can give me the breakdown, because I would like to see that.
The developer has told us, sir, that it'll
I don't care about told. I want to see it. I would like to see it.
This is why we're at an impasse here, sir.
Okay, well, so answer my question about the auditorium space.
So the difference between the gym and the auditorium is that the auditorium will be declared historical by the historical tax credit within the historical tax credit program, and the developer will not have a choice to that. The gym is not going to be declared as historical. Therefore, it is space that will not add into tax credits and help with financing. And this has been true in other, I will let the expert, Rich Relic, speak to that. But that's the difference between the gym and the auditorium, especially the stage. And that was represented in two different ways in the preferred development decision. And
I just wanted to say that, you know, the city council resolution talked about, this is the direction given to the mayor, negotiate with the preferred development team to retain the auditorium and gym space at the Pepin School for public use as stated on page 7 of the proposal. Okay, let's turn to page 7 of the proposal. While common area space is limited at Maple and Center, it is anticipated that the auditorium at Pepin will feature community amenities, including a large community room with kitchen, a library community room, a library and computer room, a fitness wellness area. It is anticipated that the gym within Pepin will remain available for city use and will continue as existing gym as needed by the city, with a nominal cost, which has been identified by the developer. And again, the city has made every reasonable effort to identify a city department, the school system, a nonprofit group, a community organization to partner with the city to undertake the leasing of that space and the operation, maintenance, and management of it. And we have gotten no takers. We are talking about $120,000 a year, and that does not include staff or workers' comp for the staff or insurance for the staff. You know, these are all other costs. And to think that the developer is just going to give this space to us for $1 is you don't know anything about development. I'm sorry. That's completely unreasonable.
The other, I just want to add into the insurance costs for the gym that we're renting from a third party. We are not insured for that. We have an insurance policy for property that's owned by the city, and that's why when Pepin was a school, which it is no longer, it was included in the overall school insurance, which, you know, you guys see. That insurance amount changes when we're leasing. A nominal cost both the school and Park and Rec really look hard at doing this. I don't tell them what their priorities are. Both departments have priorities. I was very disappointed that the Century 21 after-school program grant that we receive now, we could not access more money to do exactly this, even if instantly it wasn't a gym. And the superintendent, Maureen Beninda, who's done those programs, looked deep and hard. Park and Rec, as far as capacity and what they have going on, the park grant, also working with the commission to look at staffing, to look at recreational programming. I don't disagree with you, Councilor Derby, whatsoever. And honestly, I am shocked that we didn't get a proposal, because when you, as a council, were considering and talking through that, I was making calls informally at Holyoke Boys and Girls Club and say, hey, what do you think? And they were interested and wanted to know more detail. I can't speak to the exact reason, but I do know Girls Inc. Got their own building and are focusing on that. Holyoke Boys and Girls Club have upped their own programming, and a lot of that has to do with the schools and receivership and just a different mix of money they can access. And there was a question if that money could be used for something in Easthampton because of school choice and whatnot. We talked to Head Start about using the space as recreation. We don't have Head Start classrooms in the city anymore because we lost them when we built a new school. The requirement for those classrooms is you need to have recreation space year-round. And was there a match, perhaps, with the gym? Maybe there was a partnership that we could build. Head Start, one, couldn't wait. They're looking, first they have to find a space in the city. Also, it is very difficult for them to get rent versus rehabilitation of a space. Not undoable, but there were some barriers there. But I reached out to Hampshire, Community Action, Hampshire Franklin, just to say, look, is there anything that we can do that you know? Back in my mind, the third thing I was thinking about too, is our opioid money. And is there a part of the opioid money that could cover Park and Rec staff or might help with renovation or towards rent or whatnot? We have other priorities set by the state to use that money. It doesn't prohibit us to use for a gym. The amount of money we get annually, what we could give to that, isn't substantial. And that money is, while it's one-time money, and it stretches out of over years, it would not stretch out over 30. So just to give some context back, and I was at Mountain View for their civics fair, and the gym and space, indoor, outdoor, and whatnot, was top of mind. And I encouraged them to come to this council and also to Park and Rec. But the need and the want is something I understand very, very well. And tried for a year to make it happen. And every city department got that ROI, hand God. And I did not say, don't you dare put something forward. In fact, I said, if you think you can do something and you think you can come to a department budget and say, hey, Mayor, let's do this, I was in. And school and Park and Rec both looked. And when the cost all around it started adding up, they had other, I don't want to say they didn't want to do, because they do, but they had other priorities for the money. And it was a big financial burden for the departments.
Any of the councilors have questions or comments before? Because I have a few, but go ahead.
I'll let you, but I'm gonna make a motion.
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Put it in writing.
I do, I want to make a few comments. We have in Massachusetts, and probably in the whole United States, a housing crisis. We talk about, we hear that from the governor multiple times. We hear that about housing crisis in our city, with our neighbor cities and towns, that we do have a crisis, housing crisis. And definitely we need affordable housing. One of my daughters is not living in Easthampton because she couldn't find an apartment here. So we need affordable housing in Easthampton, and we need that pretty soon. I just want to remind the councilors, a month ago, we voted to take some money from the savings account, 1.8 million, to supplement the budget. 1.8 million. We're short with money. We take it from the savings account. We're gonna be in a hole 1.8 next year, and that's without using the estimate from the developer of $10,000 a month. That's out of the equation, right? That's completely out. Mr. Owen, you're correct. We are not developers, but we can do our homeworks. And I did my homework. If you rent a place like this one per hour, costs around $125. You multiply that times 8, that's $1,000 a day. And we're talking about $30,000 a month. That's the average out there. You can find it online. And that is someone who's going to rent it. I don't know how to run it. And that one, I'm not an expert. I don't know how to run a gym. I know how to coach, but I don't know how to run a gym. And about bringing families to Easthampton, that is really important. It is. But we have to recognize, too, that we're losing kids. Our last graduation, I was happily invited. I happily show up and shake hands with a bunch of kids. It was only 84 kids graduate this year. Only 84. And that number is reducing every year. So next year probably it's going to be 70, 75. And every year it's going to be less and less. So the people that are moving to Easthampton, or the people who live in Easthampton, they're not having kids. I'm not saying that the kids that are here, shouldn't be using the gym. I'm not saying that. I have a grandson, and he plays basketball. And I'm so happy seeing him running back and forth at the basketball court. You don't know how happy I am every time I see him having fun playing basketball. And I know the needs of the gym for the kids. I really do understand it because my grandson is part of it. But it's costing us money not to do anything with those buildings. I know that you as a coach, you as a parent, you as a teacher, you want the best for the kids. I don't have any doubt that that's what you're looking for. And I admire you for that, because that's what we need. We need advocates like you to fight for our kids. But at the same time, we need to move forward. We need to move forward and convert those buildings to units that we can have neighbors, and that we can create stories, that we can share stories when we are really old and talk about stuff, about life. Been saying all the stuff that I already said, like we're losing kids in schools. The average cost of renting a gym is around $125 per hour. That we supplement our budget with 1.8 million. So that means that we don't have money. I think it's time to move forward. And for those reasons, I'm okay removing the gym of the RFP, because I think we should move forward. Councilor Peak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple things I didn't say at the beginning that I thought I should say.
I voted for this, and I'm prepared to vote for it again tonight, and yet there's a certain amount of discomfort I have about that, and that discomfort doesn't actually stem from anything about the gym. Truth be told, just me, if you asked about like an old gym that's not up to ADA standards or 6 units affordable housing, like I probably would go with the housing. Like that's just me. I had a whole speech that I had prepared for talking about the flex code that I didn't use about. Everything has winners and losers. You know, like every single thing that we do, there's people who would have preferred we did something else. That's the burden of our task. And there's a lot of times where there are things that this council does that maybe I wish we had done something else. So that's fine there. The one thing I just want to say before we take a motion to do anything is I don't think anyone acted in bad faith here. And I want to say that really clearly because I'm worried that what I'm about to say could come off as that. And that's not what I'm trying to say. But what I do want to say is that when I looked at this stuff, when it came before us the first time, I didn't necessarily look at everything and internalize. And maybe this is on me. Maybe I didn't read the fine print well enough, or maybe there were things that hadn't come to light. I didn't necessarily internalize that when we were talking about a nominal cost, we were talking about 5 figures of costs per month, and plus, oh, the whole thing's going to have to be brought up to ADA for the renovation, and that's going to be huge, and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And I think, you know, when we initially were talking about this, there were folks in City Hall who basically said, forget about the gym. It's not worth it. It's going to be super expensive to get it up to speed. It financially doesn't make any sense. And I was like prepared to accept that argument. And then we got, if I'm not mistaken, more than one proposal that offered to save the gym. And I kind of thought like, wow, they figured out a way to make it work, right? Well, isn't that great? They figured out a way to make it work. Everyone said it couldn't work, and they figured out a way. It turns out the way to make it work is to find a unicorn that doesn't exist. And so, like, I think that there is a way in which I feel that this isn't going to be the last time we let go of a building, probably. And I think it's certainly not going to be the last time we approve a major real estate deal as a council. I don't know where this got messed up, and I'm not even really looking to assign blame, because it is what it is. It's happened. I don't really. I mean, my thing is, I hope that we can use this as a learning experience, because I think we are going to disappoint a lot of people if we do what property committee recommended for us to do. And I kind of wish if we had gone back that we had, you know, just given the structure of this whole thing. I kind of just wish that no one had come forward with an offer to save that gym, so that we could have just taken this medicine back then, instead of now having paid a bunch of money to go through a year of something that was probably never going to happen. So that's just what it is, but it's really kind of, I mean, I don't really feel like there's any, I'm just saying that not to the developer, not to anyone in the city, but I'm addressing my colleagues here. This isn't going to be the last time we find ourselves in the middle of a complex real estate situation. And I hope that in the future we can just remember how this all went down and maybe learn something from it.
Do you have this?
Sure, but
Mr. President, I appreciate what you said, and I understand all the points that you made. But I think, you know, part of being the eldest counselor here, as far as time served, is perspective. And this is the most consequential land disbursement we have done as a city, the 3 elementary schools. And I will tell you that we will never, ever get that gym back. Once this goes, it's gone. The city is never going to raise funds to build another gym for public use. It's just not going to happen ever, right? And so I think that we need to Money is very important, and being fiscally aware is very important, and understanding affordable housing is very important. And, we have a lot of housing that is in the pipeline right now that's in process. And I think that's, we all can take a little bit of a bow on that. But I think we're operating under a premise that is not necessarily clear to me, and I don't know if it's clear to anybody on the committee, anybody on the council, which is that number of $12,000 to $14,000 a month. Has anybody seen the breakdown of that number? Has anybody seen where that number comes from, what that number involves? Has anybody seen it? I think that's the most important question for us to ask ourselves, right? And then we have to look to our neighbor in Springfield and say, well, they have a former school that was hit by a tornado. Part of it was destroyed, and what they did was they built a brand new elementary school, the Elias Brooking School, and they turned the former school that was damaged into affordable housing, which is good on them. But what they also did was they preserved the gym, and they preserved it so the Springfield Parks and Recreation Department can use that gym for community use. And so, did anybody on this council or anybody in the committee look at that example and say, what did they do that we're not doing? And so what I'm going to ask in the form of a motion is that we delay this vote until our next meeting, July 10th. We've waited a year. What is 2 weeks? And we can at least have our due diligence done, because we can answer those 2 questions I just asked. And until we answer those questions, we are not doing our due diligence. Because that number is what this entire thing is based on. And we have no idea what that number is based on. So in the form of a motion, I propose that we postpone this item until our July 10th meeting, 2 weeks.
So no one is seconded. So we don't have a motion.
I'll second the motion just so it gets a vote.
I have a motion and a second to move this item to the next meeting, full council meeting. Any further discussion?
Can I ask a question of
Councilor Peak?
of the mayor?
This is not, no now.
Okay. Well, I don't know what to do.
It's been a year. 2 weeks is not.
What does the rules say
About?
Somebody asks for a delay?
I mean, we can make a motion to continue to the next meeting. That's allowed.
Right, I know.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, any further discussion? Barbara?
Omar Gomez?
No.
Tom Peak?
No.
Fred Riley?
No.
Tamara Smith?
No.
JT Terrell?
No.
Connie Denham?
I'll say yes.
Salem Derby?
Yes.
Motion fails. Councilor Peak?
Okay. I move to amend the May 17th, 2023 City Council vote accepting the proposal of Arch Communities LLC as the preferred developer for the Maple Center and Pepin Elementary Schools by removing all provisions pertaining to the retention of the Pepin School Gym.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to amend the Maple Pepin Center School Land Disposition and Development Agreement. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara?
Tom Peak?
Aye.
Brad Riley?
Aye.
Tamara Smith?
Aye.
JT Terrell?
Aye.
Connie Denham?
Aye.
Salem Derby?
No.
Omar Gomez?
Aye. Motion passes. Does conclude?
That concludes.
Thank you, Councilor Peak. Now we move to Finance. Councilor Peak again.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, we already talked about the transfers and appropriations because we had our public hearing, so those all passed. We are going to meet tomorrow to discuss the new business on our agenda.
And also, I think it's probably time that we kick off the review of salaries for elected officials and appointed committees, et cetera, once again. So we'll start talking about that too. That's tomorrow, 5:30, conference room 1. That concludes.
Thank you, Councilor Peak. Public Safety, Councilor Derby.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have not met since our last meeting where we discussed the parking. And since Councilor Zaret is not here, I don't have a date for our next meeting. So I will request it in the form of a motion that we extend the Ordinance Review Committee's final report 90 days.
Second. I have a motion and a second to extend for the 90 days the Ordinance Review Committee final report. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Tamara Smith.
Aye.
JT Terrell.
Aye.
Motion passes. Councilor Derby.
This concludes.
Thank you, Councilor Derby. Appointments, Councilor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Appointment Committee last met on June 17th, 2024, to meet with the mayoral appointee, Josh Rosenblatt, to the Zoning Board of Appeals with a term expiration date of December 31st, 2025. I think those of you who have been on the council for several terms now are familiar with Josh Rosenblatt. So he has an extensive career working for IBM. He is now retired. Also in his career, he has served as the chair and a member of EDIC for many years. Also last year, we voted unanimously to approve him to the appointment of the Energy Advisory Committee. And then, just some extra work that he does on the side for volunteer work is that he works with Local Works, which is an organization that helps create business spaces for small businesses to operate within. And then also works with Habitat for Humanity building houses and serves on the building committee in Greenfield. We had a very in-depth discussion about what it means to serve on the zoning board. We talked about the complexity of our zoning ordinances, which we have been told by experts multiple times that it's way too long and too complicated. Suffice to say, he understands what complexity comes with the job. We also had conversations about the type of work that the zoning board has been doing and is set to do. He seems like a really great fit. He's served the community for so many years, and then also I will say the zoning board chair recommended him as well for appointment. So. Unless there are any questions, can we move ahead with a motion or?
Move the motion and then further discussion.
Okay, perfect. All right, so, and then to say we voted 3-0 to recommend his appointment. So I move to appoint Josh Rosenblatt to the Zoning Board of Appeals with a term expiration date of December 31st, 2025.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to appoint Josh Rosenblatt to the Zoning Board of Appeal for the expiration term 12/31/2025. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara?
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Tamara Smith.
Aye.
JT Terrell.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. And then just an update on the appointment process improvement plan. We have been engaging in a sort of fact-finding process and documentation of how all of the various boards, committees, and commissions originated and what the the administrative codes, ordinances, our charter, Mass General Law, et cetera, all of the guiding laws that say what goes into these committees. We have 6 left that we are following up on. So that work is almost done. The final process, which doesn't require the committee, is for me to work with Evan LeBeau on producing an actual document that we can share. My intent is to bring that document to committee for review. Since it's a non-binding document, I don't think that it requires a final vote, but this is just a resource guide for the city to have. There is no appointees before us, so we do not have a meeting set at this time, but one will be set as soon as we get a new appointee. Thus concludes.
Thank you, Councilor. Ordinance, Councilor Denham.
Thank you, Mr. President. We last met on June 11th. Two of us were there, and we discussed briefly the item around the temporary moratorium on the use of sewage sludge and fertilizer in Easthampton. Generated some additional questions of research, as well as I attended the Agricultural Commission's last meeting, and they actually also took up this issue just on kind of impact on farmers. And so we agreed that we would be in collaboration, working collaboration to discuss this matter. And certainly expressed my commitments to local farmers to make sure that whatever the policy is that is created is supported by farmers and is both works in effort to support their farms, as well as ensures public safety. And so that's a conversation moving forward that we'll be having with them to discuss that matter. And that is, the date here is, it's good. So I haven't scheduled another meeting. I'll do that with the committee, and we will try to meet before the next meeting on July 10th. And that concludes.
Thank you, Councilor Denham. Property, we already done that. We don't have anything there. Rules on government relations. Was supposed to have a meeting a week ago, was it? But it was canceled because I was on vacation, and Councilor Terrell had some personal issues that he couldn't attend. So we are expecting to have a meeting before July 10th. As soon Councilor Kuczynski came from vacation, and that's conclude for rules and government. At least I missed something. That's everything, right? New business. Councilor Denham, you want to start with the resolution, and why? First, let me ask: if any councilor have any objection of voting tonight on the resolution? You guys? Yeah, good. All right, Councilor Denham.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I had other thoughts that I was going to say this evening, but the first thing that really just comes to mind after listening to public speak is just the kind of the heartbreak that I feel for the artists in the community, as well as the staff and participants and clients of Riverside community. I think this is a really unfortunate situation that has arisen. But also this evening, I heard a lot of expressed desire to be able to work together to find a solution to the situation. I think that I heard this evening the need of Riverside to have a safe space for its clients to be able to receive services. And I also heard a lot of business owners who have expressed a great deal of fear around their future. And I just want to say that I'm holding both of those things simultaneously. I've worked in organization, nonprofits similar to Riverside. I know the work that goes into that. And I have nothing but respect for the staff and certainly the clients who there and are there. And also as a resident of this community, I have taken great pride in the fact that we have a community that is rooted and supports the arts. And certainly someone who has both enjoyed the experience of being able to see the creative and artistic work of individuals and kind of what that offers to me personally as an individual. And also I see the benefit that comes from people who take classes in those businesses, as well as enjoys those art in general. I think that there's something for the spirit there. And I think that this resolution, right, that is before us, that in collaboration with the artists of the community that President Gomez and I are presenting here, is an intent to affirm the work and the commitment and the dedication of artists and the work that they did to not just work, but they really revitalized Easthampton in so many ways. It's the cornerstone of the Cottage Street Cultural District. And I think it's a opportunity for us to think about the future of Easthampton. When I moved to Easthampton, part of why I wanted to move here was because that Easthampton was economically diverse. And I think that the direction of, and someone spoke to this, gentrification, this is going to have a lasting impact on our future, whether or not we provide workspaces that remain affordable. And this obviously is a non-binding resolution, but it is an affirmation that we are offering to the rest of the community to recognize the contributions that artists have made to this community, as well as recognizing the space that is Riverside Industries and the clients that they serve in this community. And so I think that this is offered in the spirit of recognizing that contribution that artists have made. And also, again, it's a cautionary tale of the unfortunate results of gentrification and whether or not we can slow that and actually do something meaningful to try to be able to have the needs of both of those communities met. And I heard from some folks, asking for input from City Council, and I just want to state this evening my commitment to work with Riverside and the artists to try to find some sort of solution that would be best for everybody. And so, Mr. President, this is a resolution to really affirm the work of not just the work of, but the history that artists have done to really revitalize Easthampton and affirm that they too have a place in this community.
Thank you. Before any Councilor Riley?
Well, first I want to say thank you to Councilor Denham for her remarks. For me, I just want to say first that with respect to the organization of Riverside Industries, I want to be crystal clear on this, that their mission to help people with developmental and intellectual disabilities to gain meaningful work and professional development is admirable. So my critiques and my comments tonight have absolutely nothing to do with their programming or with people with disabilities. What I do take issue with are the president and board's decisions as landlords of the Cottage Street studios around what many think is an issue of fairness and what I think risks the delicate economic balance in Easthampton. Now, I fully recognize that this is an issue of a business's needs to take care of its finances, but there were dozens of business owners who attended tonight who also need to take care of their finances. Is the reason that Riverside Industries felt that they weren't required to meet with these small business owners halfway is because they're the ones that hold all of the power? That's what it feels like to me, and it doesn't sit well with me. When somebody holds absolute power, they should be a humble undertaking that empathizes with the powerless and recognizes that their needs need to be heard. There also felt like a theme tonight of using the vulnerability of people with disabilities to somehow discredit artists. And I just want to really emphasize this, that to be pro-artist is not anti-disability, and to be pro-disability is not anti-artist. I don't think that we should be putting two groups of good people against each other for the gain of an organization. To me, that was incredibly harmful and it was hurtful to hear. Now, to me, in my understanding of the situation, a 3 to 5 month lead time where rents will increase to the magnitude that they're set to increase by places tenants' businesses in a precarious situation that doesn't give them much time to build the rent increases into their business model. I want to know why there is no opportunity for collaboration or incremental increases to help these business owners stay afloat. A refusal to collaborate forces them to choose between probable financial bankruptcy or eviction, and to me, neither of those situations seems fair. I'm also worried that this could have a chilling effect on our local economy. You know, I often tell people outside of Easthampton in my work at the federal level of this wonderful story of how the Easthampton economy has come alive over the last 10 years or so, and it's anchored by local artists, the cannabis industry, and a vibrant restaurant industry. These three industries together create a synergy which allows all three to thrive stronger together than were they to stand alone by themselves. And all of our small businesses benefit from this synergy. I fear that a decision to force rent increases to go into effect in the magnitude that they're planned and the short amount of time before it occurs can unnecessarily jeopardize our entire economy. I also fear that a bullish attempt that harms our local artists can hurt the reputation of Riverside Industries and make filling vacant spaces more difficult in the future. To me, how they handled themselves tonight in front of the public eye determines how likely small business owners are to rent from them in the future. So in closing, since the Riverside Industry folks have left, I'm asking some rhetorical questions. And the first one is just why? Why are we pushing forward with a decision that feels so anti-Easthampton when their entire business model is pro-Easthampton? Why haven't they asked for help from other people like us to move forward with a plan that meets everyone's business needs while still protecting the economy? To me, in my experiences, the Easthampton that I know would embrace the dialogue with open arms, and it would help everybody find common ground, and I hope that we can do that because everybody deserves the right to have a thriving small business in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Peak.
I have a few thoughts I should have probably organized better than I did. And the first thing I just want to say, this is just addressed to the council, is how just absolutely sick I am of being once again in a situation where there's a real issue that really is going to affect real people. And the only thing that we can do is do a non-binding, completely symbolic resolution. I'm just sick of it. I don't have any solutions either, so I'm not like, well, why didn't you think of something better? Because I could have. I didn't. I haven't. It's just the reality of the situation that the business model of this council has become more and more to just observe the world and say, well, we don't like that bad thing that happened, and then it just happens anyway because powerful people get what they want. That's just the reality. This is the thing I've been saying for a long time now, and I don't have a solution to this, but I'm just hoping that somebody does. our model for economic growth based on the arts, I have come to believe over the years, was always a lie. It was always a lie, because if you could look down the street in Northampton and see where it leads, right? Artists capitalize on the cheap space and the ability to find affordable housing. They create a beautiful community. That makes lots of people with money want to live here. Those people with money then outbid them, first for residential space, then eventually for commercial space, chew them up and spit them out. It's what happened in Northampton, which is why it is now a boring, cultureless husk of what it used to be. I was born there, so I can say this. It's a boring town. There's nothing to do, and there's no art there, because all the artists came here, and now they're going to go eventually somewhere else, because gentrification here is going to drive them out, just like it drove them out of everywhere else. Right now, the issue that we're talking about involves the landlord of this building being a organization that does a lot of really, really good things for the community, and that does complicate it. But ultimately, every one of our artistic spaces around here, unless people happen to have gotten bought at the right time, is owned by a private landlord who has nothing but their own interests at heart when it really comes down to it. I mean, Riverside they came in here and said it. They don't owe their tenants anything, because that's how our economic system is set up. Landlords don't owe their tenants anything. I wish they did, they don't. And so I don't know what the solution is here, and I will vote yes on this tonight, because there's not a single word in this resolution that I don't support. But I don't feel good about seeing this situation, which is going to affect 80 businesses in my precinct, and the conflict between 80 businesses in my precinct and one of the most well-respected, long-standing public good organizations in my precinct. I see this going down and saying, like, well, we really acknowledge and support and respect your contribution to this beautiful city that is now becoming too expensive for anyone creative to exist in it anymore. I think that there has to be, I don't know, something. Like, there has to be something more proactive we can do than just say, we acknowledge you. I'm so sick of saying that we acknowledge people. I'm so unbelievably sick of acknowledging people. If we as a body aren't the people who can do something about this, then somebody else, I'm not just saying this is in this specific land dispute, I'm saying this situation where we built a thriving city on people's artistic contributions, their creative contributions, and now we've reached a real estate point where it's convenient and easy to throw them out. Right? That is going to keep happening again and again. I'm in a big artistic community. You know how many of my artistic friends can afford to live in this city? Because they didn't buy when I did. So now none of them can. None of my friends moved to this city. This is becoming a city for rich people. And rich people don't make cool art most of the time. So it's just going to create, we are in a serious, this is a crisis. And I don't put that on Riverside exclusively. They've got a complicated situation. But the reality is that if Riverside's going to charge what they can charge in rents, and so is every single other landlord everywhere. Landlords, unless they are set up in a very, very special way, are not here as public good organizations. They're set up to do what's best for them. And if these guys are saying, hey, we think that there's the market rate out there, that we can charge these people this, and if they walk away, hey, there's going to be other people who can come in. A lot of other landlords are going to be thinking the exact same thing if they aren't already. So I don't have a solution here, but this can't just be a thing that we say, well, thanks for your contributions, and then just sit back, because if we sit back, they're all going to be gone, and we're going to be another stupid, boring rich people town with nothing to do.
Yep.
I've lost my train of thought, but that's just, I've had this concern since I first ran, and it's just played out exactly the way that I worried that it would. I'm really worried that we are at the point of the breaking point where we start to be start to see what Northampton did, and that we start seeing some other communities around here with people going, oh, wow, they're really up and coming, and people really excited about that, as if in 10 years the exact same thing isn't going to happen to them. So I don't know, like, maybe that's just capitalism and it just sucks and it is what it is, but there's got to be somebody out there with a better idea than anything I've been able to come up with.
Any other councilors? Before taking the motion, I want to make a few comments. First one, thank you. Thank you. Easthampton is the place that we have today because of you guys. As soon we came down the mountain and go to Cottage Street and we see the huge mural, we know this is an art town. We have art city. That's our welcome to Easthampton. So thank you. I will say that this council believes in art. You can see it every time that we vote to approve money for the Old Town Hall. That's for art. So we are doing the part that I think we can do. I agree with you, Councilor Peak. It's really hard to fight with the rich people. It's really hard. And I think we can find better ways to fight for the people that need help. And we have them today. Thank you to you guys. We have one of the best, probably one of the best festival, and I will call it festival because it's festival, around Western Mass, Cultural Chaos. What a great event. And what event is that? It's about art. Dancing, painting, you name it. It's about art. So thank you again. And we know that when you own a business, especially the business that we have next to us, probably they have a tight budget like we do a couple weeks ago. And they have to do what they need to do to stay in business, right? We understand that. But we know how hard it is to create a budget and accommodate everybody. But we talk about affordable. I hope we never stop talking about it because it's really hard to find something affordable in our town, or being rent for apartment or rent for art or for businesses. It's really hard. Again, thank you. And again, I want to make it really clear because it bothers me. This is not the disability community against the art. It's not. And I heard so many stuff today that bothers me a lot. The intent of this resolution is not against the disability community. They deserve respect. They deserve the same rights. They deserve that we fight as much as we can or more for that community. We need to think more about that community. We need to put our shoes in their shoes to understand that community. So it's unfair, it's low to compare and to try to make a situation that is disability community against art or art against disability community. Again, that bothers me a lot. And I cannot leave this meeting without saying that that's not the intent. And this, I will talk on behalf of the council. We support the disability community in all their needs. And we're going to be here for them too, for everything or anything they need. It's as simple as that. Councilor Denham.
I think, Mr. President, again, just want to thank the artists in the community for reaching out to us to draw attention to this matter. Certainly, again, this is an intent to affirm. And also, it is an opportunity for us to think about more clearly that relationship between artists and, as we've been talking about, the disability community. So I think I see this as an opportunity. And again, I just want to state again my commitment to working with you all to find a solution to this. Mr. President, in the form of a motion, I'd like to read the resolution by the Easthampton City Council in support of affordable artist workspaces. Whereas the City of Easthampton Community Development Strategy 2019 to 2024 describes Easthampton's community development goals and activities, including those that may be suitable for assistance under community development block grant programs and other state and federal community development programs. And whereas the following goals were identified by the community: enhance the local climate for sustainable economic development in the commercial downtown, the industrial manufacturing base, green energy, and the growing arts cluster. Protect key historic and cultural resources through the reuse of Old Town Hall and the recognition and protection of key historic districts, and will contribute to the long-term maintenance of Easthampton's community character. Whereas the following priority projects were identified: strengthen downtown through increased housing units, continued affordability of commercial space, access to gathering space, and links to public transportation. Market and support Easthampton's Cottage Street Cultural District, support an increase in public art and art education. Whereas the members of the Easthampton City Council endorse the above-mentioned goals and priority projects and recognize the key roles played by artists and other creatives in the economic development and revitalization of Easthampton over the last 2 decades. Whereas the arts enhance the lives of all Easthampton residents and affect every aspect of life, including the economy, social problem solving, job creation, education, creativity, and community livability. And whereas the members of the Easthampton City Council recognize the foundational role that Cottage Street Studios, comprised of more than 80 artists with studios at 1 Cottage Street, played in the designation by the Mass Cultural Council of the Cottage Street Cultural District, one of the first so established in the Commonwealth. Further, that in 1976, 1 Cottage Street was the first converted mill building in Western Mass to foster creative community and the first to host open spaces. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Easthampton City Council that the Easthampton City Council hereby supports the maintenance and continuation of affordable art studio space within the Cottage Street Cultural District, as well as in the downtown corridor and Pleasant Street repurposed mills. The council further understands that the arts and culture are significant contributors to the economic viability of the city, attract thousands of visitors to the city each year, and have greatly enhanced the reputation of the city as a cultural destination.
Second. I have a motion and a second for the resolution by the Easthampton City Council in support of the affordable artist workspace. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Tamara Smith.
Aye.
JT Terrell.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Motion passes. Councilor Peak.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I got my, there we go.
I'm looking for it too.
Thanks, Barb, for that tab, that helped. Okay, so I have one thing, request is, I'm going to make this in the form of a motion.
Yes, and public hearing for July 10th.
I will make this in the form of a motion and also set a public hearing for July 10th. Request is hereby made for the approval of the following appropriation. Amount requested, $299,023 to be transferred from capital stabilization, to be transferred to wastewater treatment plant mechanical aerator, $299,023. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose. The funds will serve as a match
funding for the Long Island Sound Futures Fund grant and Mass DEP GAP 3 Energy grant that have been awarded to the Department of Public Works. These grants and the associated match funding will cover the replacement of all 4 mechanical aerators and repairs to the aeration basins at the wastewater treatment plant.
Second. I have a motion and a second to move the supplemental appropriation to the Finance Committee and to schedule a public hearing July 10th at 6:15 at this chamber. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara?
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Tamara Smith.
Aye.
JT Terrell.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye. Motion passes. We'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
For motion and a second to adjourn, Barbara.
Tom Peak. Oh,
Aye.
sorry. Brad Riley.
Aye.
Tamara Smith.
Aye.
JT Terrell.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Motion is adjourned. See you, Connie. I think it's like, what, 2 a.m.?
It is 3 o'clock.
Oh, my God.
Good morning.
Thank you, Connie. Thank
Yes. Good morning.
you. Bye. See ya. See you soon.